What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
9GV. Chapter 231 Crazy. Of course, only that guy would do such a thing. Only the guy who destroyed Mariajoy had the guts to do such a thing. Madman. That guy is a madman. It wasn't enough to destroy Mariajoy once, and now even a second time. And this time even Marin Fandua was destroyed by him. How could there be such a guy in the world? Unscrupulous, insane. Madman. Everyone thought he was crazy. Didn't doing such a thing force the world government to go crazy with him? No one can tell what the world will look like after that. However, after realizing this guy's madness, the people on the sea also realized another thing. That is, has the 140 world government been driven to a corner by them? After the destruction of Mariajoy and Marindo, the only thing the world government did was run wild denunciations in the newspapers. Said that the sun god was a terrorist. To act recklessly and to slaughter. Countless innocent government workers and marine soldiers were killed. They were all serving the world and working hard to maintain the order of the world, but now they were all killed by that guy mercilessly. Even the naval headquarters, which had protected the world for 800 years, was destroyed, and the people who were desperate to uphold justice could only die screaming in the flames. World government is trying to stir up hostility from people all over the world to that group. Others, it seems that nothing can be done. But what they didn't expect was that even with this only effort, half of the people in this world are not interested in this kind of thing at all. As far as people who are not members of the World Government Franchise Department, they certainly don't care about the life and death of the guys under the World Government. For them, what they are more concerned about is that even after doing such a thing, the World Government still has nothing to do with the Illuminati. The Sun God can still show off his might. They have the power to rival the World Government. And they are still expanding. Keep controlling more countries and islands. Then, it means that, if there is no accident, sooner or later their country will be covered by the Illuminati. They too can usher in peace and tranquility under the protection of the God of the Sun. Everyone in this world already knows that the Illuminati will show no mercy to the pirates in the sea area they govern. What they need is a stable and peaceful place where they can steadily contribute their faith to the God of the Sun. And they have such great power. As long as you can get his protection, you will be able to usher in the peace you have been longing for. This is the same thought of almost all aspirants from non-member countries. What if it is a sacrifice? As long as he can bring them peace and tranquility, then he is a true God. At least compared to the world government, this little effort is nothing at all. Many non-world government countries that have not been covered this time have even prepared to contact the Illuminati and ask them to send people to their own countries first. No matter what the princes and ministers think, at least from the perspective of the people at the bottom, the arrival of the Illuminati is simply an extremely happy thing. But for many people in countries that are part of the government, things are a little different. Most of them have been accustomed to the life they have lived for a long time, and the possible changes brought about by the Illumination Club make them fearful. Especially the kings and nobles of the various alliance countries. They don't have to worry about the gold in the sky, the whole country is their private property. But if the Illuminati comes, everything will be different, and that group likes to completely control a country in the palm of their hands. At first, they weren't too worried. After all, the world government has ruled the world for 800 years, and they have never been defeated. But the situation is different now, even the naval headquarters has been destroyed, who knows what the world will turn into next. But no one thought of being crazy, this was just the beginning. Naval Headquarters G1 Base. This is the second most important base in the entire Marine. It is basically an island symmetrical to naval headquarters centered on the Red Line mainland, and it is the second gateway to defend Mariajoy. But of course, now that Mariajoy is dead, the existence of this island is far less meaningful than it used to be. However, even so, the existence of this island at this time is still of great significance. Naval headquarters has been devastated, and there is no doubt that it is the #1 new Marine base candidate. Vice Admiral Garp and Zephyr Instructor who went to the Sphinx are on their way back, and when they return, they will be able to decide on the new marshal. But that's when the Marines of this Marine base are waiting anxiously. In the sky, a yellow flying dragon came suddenly. That is, the Marines at the port immediately noticed the flying dragon hovering in midair and the man riding on the flying dragon's back. Mahad. It's Mahad. The god-tier officer of the Illuminati is here. The alarm sounded in an instant, and a large number of Marines poured out of the building in the next moment. Why is this guy here? A headquarters vice admiral stationed at this base, his forehead was already covered with sweat, and the hand holding the blade was even trembling. A monster that can rival Vice Admiral Garp is here, of course, it won't be good news. Mahad looked down at the Marines below with a calm expression. God, let us come and send God's punishment on you for him. 5.6 inches. So, be destroyed. The staff has been raised, and the over-limit mode is activated at this moment. Black explosion destroyer magician. One by one black spheres condense above the sky. Then it fell down under the almost desperate eyes of the Marines. Etc. Just now this guy said, This is the last thought on the mind of this Vice Admiral. At last. Boom 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 boom. The raindrop-like sphere fell and exploded, covering the entire island in an instant. Everything was reduced to ashes at this moment. It wasn't just this base that was attacked. The number of G-series bases under Marine exceeds 10. And on the same day, they were all attacked at the same time. Chapter 232, Testing the Wind of Light. Before the turbulent sea had time to be quiet for a few minutes, a new storm once again caused the entire sea to boil. The Knights of the God under the command of the Sun God attacked everywhere on the sea. Their target is the G-series bases under Marine. Mahad, the God-tier officer, destroyed the G1 base on the front foot, and Kisara, the White Dragon girl, blasted the G6 base into pieces on the back foot. Then I heard the news that the Black Thunder Enel directly blasted the entire G7 base into the sky in a fit of rage. Immediately afterwards, Bullet used his ability to directly squeeze the entire G4 base into a statue of the Sun God. All the Marine soldiers on that base were forced to be part of that statue. In this short day, the Knights of the Gods appeared in various parts of the Grand Line, as if the long distance could be crossed with only a small step for them. They thus destroyed all of Marine's G-series bases in this short period of time. The quality parts of these Marines' highest specifications were completely destroyed in this way, just like the Marine 29 headquarters. Damn, those bastards. Somewhere in the sea area of New World, a Marine warship was originally returning to the G1 base. Black Arm Zephyr gritted his teeth violently. All the muscles in his body were trembling, his eyes were wide open and the corners of his eyes were even torn. How dare you do such a thing? Zephyr's heart was bleeding. Now, except for the senior officers transferred from the headquarters in advance, the elite Marines have almost been wiped out. After all, every base of the G-series is stationed by officers of the Vice Admiral level of the headquarters. In addition, the elite officers who went out with them this time, but were ruthlessly slaughtered by that guy. Marine's remaining strength is undoubtedly the weakest in history, and the number of Vice Admirals has even dropped below 10. Among the Vice Admirals who died, many of them were old guys who had fought with Zephyr since they were young. And among the young officers who died with those Vice Admirals, many of them were disciples taught by Zephyr himself. How can this method not mourn? How can it not be sad? Not only him, but also the other Marines on the ship, the Hero Garp and the 3 Alternates Admiral, also felt depressed this time. Marine, what should we do next? Kuzan sighed. The strength of the enemy makes it impossible for them to compete. And on their side, the world government they rely on. In the final analysis, the attack that day was intended to wipe them out together with them. Kuzan sighed inwardly. At this moment, his heart was full of bewilderment. Let's go back first. The Hero Garp was leaning against the side of the cabin, he pressed the bridge of his nose, and said silently. Go back. Zephyr turned around. Where can we go back? Marin is gone, and so are all the important bases. Where do these Marines belong? For a moment, the cabin was filled with silence. The shock brought by the actions of the Knights of God to the whole world is huge. However, after the news of the destruction of naval headquarters, although the news was equally shocking, it was not so unacceptable. New World, all nations. Marine is doomed. Charlotte Linlin frowned. All that remains of the Marines are small branches scattered around the world commanded by Marines of the highest colonel. So far, where is there any prestige to speak of? A large number of elites were wiped out by the Illuminati and the God of the Sun. Let alone launching an attack again, it will become extremely difficult for them to maintain the peace in the jurisdiction, right? Even if the upside-down mountain is blocked due to the light, the number of pirates flooding into the Grand Line has been greatly reduced. But the pirates who existed on the Grand Line, and the pirates who went to sea on the Grand Line, have not decreased at all. How should the Marines respond next? Damn it, what the hell are we going to do next? Charlotte Linlin gritted her teeth, distraught. She, Kaido, Whitebeard, plus the world government's expeditionary force, such a terrifying force combined can't do anything to those people. Except for the final weapon that may belong to the world government, Charlotte Linlin couldn't think of anything in the world that could defeat those people and the Sun God. Can't win. It's impossible to win. Just a few God Knights, your family will be swept away. Moreover, that Sun God's desire for revenge is also unusually heavy. After being attacked by Marine and the government, they went non-stop to destroy Mariajoy and Marin Fando. Now even the Marine bases are under attack. No, I can't stay in Wangguo any longer. Charlotte Linlin made a decision right away. You can only give up your own foundation. Otherwise, it will be too late when those people attack. Damn it. Charlotte Linlin regretted so much at this time. Why did she think she was going to have a convulsion and go to provoke that group of people? Anyway, the final result is to give up your territory, but it's better than being targeted by that group now, right? World government. Now I can only watch your performance 833. Cheers to my old lady. No matter what, we must completely eliminate that group of people in the shortest possible time. Charlotte Linlin never thought that one day she would cheer for the world government. Another corner of the world, an island under a certain dark cloud. Amidst the strong wind, a man with long black hair stood on the edge of the island. Is it already this crazy? Facing the strong wind, the man muttered to himself, the world is about to usher in unprecedented chaos. The era of the great pirates was extremely chaotic, and the number of pirates who flooded into the sea because of Roger's last words was simply countless. And now the Marines who maintain the order of this era have suffered unprecedented heavy losses, and they may have lost their deterrent power against this sea. There is no longer any strength to maintain the tranquility of the sea. The Illuminati, you have done such a crazy thing, what kind of world do you want? There was a firmness in the man's eyes, let me go and see for myself. Come and see for yourself what the seas under their control look like. The world government has been proven wrong, what about this group, will they be right? Men want to see it for themselves. He turned into the wind and drifted away. Chapter 233 The Government's Counterattack. Dorag comes to Alabasta. The expansion of the Illuminati around the world has become irresistible. In the Four Seas, in the New World, where do the countries covered by the Illuminati dare to resist at all? Regardless of whether it is a non-joined country or a joined country of the government, all kings and nobles can only please the priests and sun knights of the Illuminati with a smile. Everyone has already understood that this is simply not a force they can resist. If you can't resist, of course you can only choose to accept it helplessly. However, ordinary people in these countries do not have much resistance to this. After all, the arrival of the Illuminati not only did not make their lives worse, but to some extent improved their living standards. For the people of the member countries of the world government, they no longer have to pay the sky gold, and the quality of life is of course rising steadily. For the nationals of countries that are not members of the world government, the arrival of the Illuminati is even more good news. After all, this means that the pirates on the sea have little courage to dare to harass them again. This is, of course, great news for the non-affiliated countries that have no marine protection and can only become a criminal paradise for lawbreakers on the sea. Belonging is a step from hell to the world. However, when the Illuminati stopped expanding and began to concentrate on managing the territory they had just won, world government's actions began. The world government has announced that it will impose economic sanctions on all countries that succumb to the Illuminati, prohibit all affiliated countries from trading with them, and impose the strictest material embargo on them. But of course that doesn't really matter. After all, the gates of the countries on this sea are quite closed, there is very little trade between islands, and most of the islands are self-sufficient. Economic sanctions are simply out of the question. Therefore, of course, the real focus of the world government's actions can only be placed on force. Marine branches all over the world are in action. The first thing they did was to seal off the borders of the area occupied by the Illuminati, and strictly prohibited all affiliated countries from contacting the Illuminati. The world is almost artificially divided into two regions. Part of it is the area led by the Illumination Club centered around the Grand Line estuary and the upside-down mountain area. Part of it is of course the half of the world that is still under the control of the world government at this time. However, even so, the world government was not in a hurry to launch an attack on the Illuminati. After all, Marine has suffered heavy losses now, and there are not many middle and high-level generals left, and they are simply unable to organize the army to attack the Illuminati. Whether it is the top Marines or the government, one thing is very clear that the basic Marines alone are absolutely not enough to fight the Sun Knights. Those fighters who have mastered the flame have an exaggeratedly high basic quality, and any one of them has the power to single-handedly rival a Marine warship or even surpass it. Blockade. This is the limit of what the world government can do. However, these are the only things that can be done directly by force, which does not mean that the world government really only does these things. For the first time in 800 years, the world government has opened its arms to non-member countries. The proportion of collecting heavenly gold began to decrease significantly. After all, celestial dragons have become homeless people floating in the sky now, and they don't have enough conditions to enjoy themselves. No amount of gold in the sky is meaningless. The five elders are thinking of simply lowering the gold in the sky as a condition to win the hearts of the people. Facts have proved that this policy is quite attractive, because the non-government member countries of the Emperor immediately responded to the government's call. After all, the Illuminati is far from covering them, and now they can be accepted by the world government, which is of course ecstatic to them. As a result, the pattern of the world has undergone tremendous changes. An unprecedented half of the world is connected together. Although the world government lost a large amount of territory due to the expansion of the Illuminati, after these changes, the area they actually controlled increased rather than decreased. In addition to wooing non-affiliated countries, one thing the government is still doing is expanding its military. The damage suffered by the Marine was too serious, and there was less than one officer of the rank of Tian Zhong left. The marshal died in battle, and the only admiral is now a vegetable. If there is no expansion of the army, then the Marine will almost exist in name only. The conditions offered by the world government are extremely exaggerated. As long as you have enough ability, you can choose any position, even the admiral of headquarters. Naturally, this led to a wave of joining the army. After all, the world government has ruled the world for 800 years, and their prestige in this world is unrivaled. The combat strength of the middle and lower levels has been well supplemented, but for the time being, there are no guys who can become Marine Admiral levels. However, Du Lin from the Island of Gods didn't pay much attention to this matter. His opinion is similar to that of IM, even if Marine expands, so what? There is still no way to determine the direction of the world. In the end, the direction of the world still depends on these two people, himself and IM. As a result, the world once again fell into peace. The only interesting thing that happened is probably that the Charlotte family in New World gave up their residence in the world and now they have become a group of pirates roaming the sea again. The second half of Sea Circle Calendar 1502 came to an end with this theme. But in the meantime, some guy came to Alabasta. He turned into a breeze, and sneaked into this country without a sound, and no one noticed his arrival. He traveled quietly to various cities in the country. As the first known country in the sea and ruled by the Illuminati, this country can well represent the status of the territory under the Illuminati's jurisdiction. Peaceful. This is a man's first impression of this country. Unparalleled tranquility. There is no pirate infestation, no foreign enemy invasion. The weather ships flying in the sky completely changed the country's weather, and even the vegetation in cities, large and small, was quite lush at this time. The effects of previous wars and droughts are completely invisible. Everyone had smiles from the bottom of their hearts. It seems that this is not bad, Dong. The Illuminati seems to have indeed brought peace and stability to the country. The man thought so, until he arrived in Albana. Chapter 234. Drago made up his mind. Dorag is a rebel. He didn't like to follow the rules since he was a child. In his youth, he showed extraordinary qualities. Of course, this doesn't just refer to his extraordinary talent in combat. As a fighter, his talent is of course top-notch, and everyone who knows him believes that he will become the top powerhouse in the sea. But what is really special about him lies elsewhere. As the son of a marine hero, Dorag had high hopes when he was young, and everyone believed that he would be the pillar of marine in the future. But what everyone expected is that he did have a marine period, but it was very short. From a very young age he wondered whether marine's justice was right. Is being loyal to the world government really making the world a better place? The final result of his thinking led him to leave marine. He believed that the path of the world government was wrong from the very beginning, and marine following the world government could not talk about any real justice. He is going to find his own path. This search is a long time. During this time, Dorag established an organization called the Volunteers. 987. The reason why this organization was established was because of the pirates flooding the sea and the people who were largely unprotected, especially the people of non-member countries. All they can do in the face of reckless pirates and criminals from all walks of life is to endure and howl. Drago tried to arm these people and teach them the power of fighting. The organization was very dynamic at one time, and he really developed a big force zone. But it is a pity that the members of the organization often come from different countries, and the interest disputes between each other gradually become prominent later on. The Zeong army finally fell apart altogether. Fortunately, Drago has also gathered the first batch of partners. But he was still a little depressed until the Ohara incident. It wasn't until this time that he realized that the world government was the root of all tragedies in this world. It is precisely because of their reckless behavior that the world has become what it is today. From that time on, Drago finally made clear his goal. Destroy the world government. Establish a truly just, reasonable and orderly world order. Only in this way can the world usher in real peace, and only in this way can people in this world truly live a peaceful life. But soon Drago discovered that the world was changing too fast. Before he could set up the organization he envisioned called the Revolutionary Army, the actions of the Illuminati had already caused a sensation in the whole world. Drago has been paying attention to the actions of the Illuminati. I was also shocked by the waves that this group of people created in the sea. But it wasn't until now that he really came into contact with the true appearance of this organization. This is outside the temple in Albana. Outside the temple, it has turned into a huge square at this time. After all, there are too many people who come to worship every day, and a single temple is not enough. At this time, Drago was fortunate to participate in a super large-scale organizing ceremony. The square was already full of believers from all over Alabasta. Although there are temples in every city, the temple located in Aldina naturally has an extraordinary status in the hearts of all believers. After all, the person who presides over this temple is Priest Marty, the chief priest of Alabasta. When Priest Marty took the stage and led all the believers to pray, Dorag felt the creeps from the bottom of his heart. Almost all the believers in the square had fanatical smiles on their faces. They knelt down on the ground devoutly, and some even had blood dripping from their heads. What the hell is this? Drago couldn't help but widen his eyes. After the prayer was over, he even saw many people surrounding the priest Marty, saying that they wanted to donate property to the gods. Their bold appearance convinced Drago that even if the priest asked them to donate all their property, they would not hesitate at all. Drago felt fear at this moment. The means of control that the world government adopts against the countries under their command and the people under their command is violence and coercion. Only by joining the world government, only by following the world government can you get the protection of the marine and not be harmed by the pirates on the sea. But the Illuminati, the means they use are even more terrifying. They use faith to control the people under their command. These people are enslaved both physically and mentally. They have indeed brought a stable life to the civilians, and will even gradually make the country rich. But if all of this is based on the fact that the people are completely dominated, then Drago feels that this is by no means a good thing. If the so-called gods are more important than everything else, how can we live a good life in this world? Drago quietly looked at the crowd who hadn't dispersed even after the prayer was over. His expression gradually became serious. It destroys unscrupulously externally, and uses belief to control the people internally. This group of people is scarier than the world government. If everyone only wants to serve God, and everyone wants to please God, so as to enter the kingdom of God after death, how can this world attract development? They are also their own enemies. Dorag thought so. If you want to liberate the whole world, then this group of people must also be defeated. To be honest, this decision was a bit difficult to make. After all, just deciding to overthrow the world government is already extremely difficult, not to mention now targeting this monster organization that can almost rival the world government. But Drago didn't hesitate. If he wants to bring true peace and freedom to this world, then he believes that these two enemies he identified must be defeated. This world has never needed gods, whether it is the celestial dragons sitting high in the clouds, or the sun god who is now in full swing. This sea belongs to the people. Drago finally took a deep look at Priest Marty, who was surrounded by the crowd, and then disappeared into the country as a breeze. He is about to act. First of all, Let's pull up the revolutionary army team that was originally planned. If he wants to defeat those two groups of strongest enemies, then he needs a group of strongest partners. Chapter 235 Yamato and Robin. Of course Du Lin, sitting high on the island of gods, didn't know, and when he didn't even know, he had another enemy. And this enemy is still a big character with a very important role in the original work. But even if he knew, he probably wouldn't take this matter to heart. Now even the naval headquarters and the future pirate emperors are nothing in Du Lin's eyes, and it doesn't matter how many revolutionary troops there are. So what was the great sun god doing during this time? Back in time to a little earlier. The revenge against Marine has just ended, because the sea is rough. The island of the gods is quiet and peaceful. After all, the sky sanctuary is far away from Shanghai. No matter what happens in the sea area below, it will not affect the tranquility above this sky. Even Du Lin, the empty road connecting Beihai and Shanghai, has been cut off by. With the floating ship, the existence of this thing is already a bit tasteless. If you want to realize the connection of Shanghai, the sanctuary of the sky, the floating ship is enough. The road to the sky continues to exist there, and it has no other purpose except to let those who see it know that it leads to the sky, thereby exposing the location of the sky sanctuary. After all, Du Lin doesn't want his lair to be bombed by Im's secret weapon. It's not that I'm afraid. There was nothing to be afraid of until now. Even if the weapon really appeared in front of him again, he could avoid it at will through the flying thunder god technique. Even if Shanghai couldn't stay any longer, he could still go to the moon. Du Lin simply didn't want the sky sanctuary to be destroyed. Even a dog will have feelings after being raised for a long time, not to mention that Du Lin has been in the island of the gods and stayed in this sky for 7 or 8 years. He didn't want it to be destroyed. But the sky sanctuary is not completely safe. At least a group of Roger pirates know this place and know that they are here. Back then Roger brought his men to this island, where they got the historical text that recorded the whereabouts of Poseidon. Although the Roger pirates have been disbanded long ago, the members of the Roger pirates are not dead, but retired to the sea. Although Du Lin doesn't think they will stand up and tell the world government his whereabouts. But this kind of thing can't be 100% sure. The sky sanctuary is at risk of exposure. If the government knows the news that he is here, then I am afraid that the final weapon will come over immediately. But still that sentence, it doesn't matter. At least at this time, the sanctuary of the sky is still an isolated and pure land that will not be disturbed by all the disturbances on the sea. It's just that today this piece of unworldly pure land is a bit noisy. D. Let me go back. In the temple, the little girl with white hair flung herself at Du Lin with all her teeth and claws. Du Lin, who was bored and watching movies to pass the time, casually took a picture of his little daughter aside. This girl's energy is too strong. From the day I was brought back, the noise never stopped. Except for eating and sleeping time, almost non-stop trying to escape. But of course it's pointless. At this time, Yamato is not even capable. How can she escape from this island in the sky when she is only 8 years old? Every time I didn't even have time to escape from the temple, I was brought back by the maids and sisters. Don't underestimate the maids serving Du Lin in this temple, all of them are holders of healing flames. Release the healing flame, and easily restrain the little girl. Seeing that she had nowhere to escape, the girl could only come to Du Lin every day to get angry. D. A little girl who turned over and got up from the ground gritted her teeth. I'm going to beat you. Of course she couldn't beat Du Lin. Du Lin flicked a finger on the forehead, and the whole person fell to the ground on all fours like a little turtle. You guys are pervert, right? But at this time, Yamato is not without reinforcements. Of course, all the help this reinforcements can give her is limited to lip service. The former Marine Rear Admiral Guillaume leaned limply on Du Lin's shoulder. A pair of fierce eyes are gradually becoming lazy now, even though they are still cursing Du Lin, but the tone is no longer fierce at this time, it can only barely be called sarcasm. Is such a small child able to do it? Du Lin was still just watching the scene projected by the phone bug calmly. This girl is Kaido's daughter and inherited his talent. She has the potential to become a knight of the gods. Ask for flowers. Knight of God. Jhin looked at Yamato in amazement, who stood up again. It's no wonder that both physical strength and energy are far beyond what ordinary children can match. Is it Kaido's child? Miss Guillaume gritted her teeth secretly. In this case, when this child grows up, the power under this D will become stronger again. I don't want to be your knight. The little girl fully explained what is meant by indomitable spirit, baring her teeth and claws like a little wild cat, trying to scratch Waberlin's face. But in the next second, Du Lin flicked his finger and sent him flying again. HMPH, it seems that your wishful thinking is not so easy to come true. Guillaume continued to sneer. This little girl is very similar to her, and she is not so easy to give in. Isn't that nice? Du Lin lifted the woman's chin with a smile, and said with a smile, I just feel that it's a little too quiet around me recently. Ms. Rear Admiral just snorted coldly, but there was no other response. Because she knows that making noise is useless. Not to mention that the man-made devil fruit that was fed at this time was also wearing seastone shackles. Even if she was in her prime, she couldn't make any waves in front of this guy. While thinking this way, Ms. Rear Admiral glanced at the little girl who was still approaching aggressively. I can't help feeling pity for this child in my heart. How young she is. Being targeted by this guy is already impossible to get rid of. Later, Yin was angrily preparing to go to the restaurant of the temple for dinner. Her movements were not restricted in any way. After all, even the maids can subdue her, so there is really no need to impose any restrictions on her. The dining room is where the maids eat. After all, there are only a few people who are qualified to eat with God, and only when God is willing. Although Yamato has never stopped resisting Dulin, she likes the food in the temple very much and goes to the restaurant to eat on time every day. I want to eat this. Yamato has a big appetite, so he ordered a bunch of food in one go, and after he piled up the plates, he walked to a corner of the restaurant with two short legs and sat down with someone in front of Sister Robin. Good afternoon. Sitting in front of her is Robin. Chapter 236 Agreement. Robin closed the book in his hand. As a girl who is motivated to fulfill Ohara's wish and find out the truth of the blank 100 years. Robin's thirst for knowledge can only be described as hunger and thirst, and he will not put down the books in his hands even when eating. The girl is already 10 years old this year, and the black hair in the shawl is tied into a sassy single ponytail at the back of her head, probably because she reads too much. There is also an extra pair of glasses on the bridge of the nose. She looked at the white-haired little girl who was gobbling in front of her, and recalled the time when the two met for the first time. It was many days ago, the day when the boy named Yamato was first brought to the island of the gods. That day was also the same as today, eating in the restaurant while reading a book, and then it was also the same as today, the little girl with a tall dinner plate sat in front of me carelessly. Robin has never met her, and he is sure that this is indeed the first time the two have met. But this, 453, tooth was still missing one, but the little girl immediately greeted her with a smile. Hello, I'm Yamato, were you also brought here by that guy? Grasp. Robin tilted his head in surprise. Then she heard this little girl who called herself Yamato yell out how she was forcibly brought to this island by a nasty B********************. Then Robin knew that the little girl was brought back by God. She was criticizing God. Robin got angry immediately, and planned to teach this rude white hair a lesson. She used her ability to grow a bunch of arms on by Mao's body, pressed her on the stool and beat her hard. But unexpectedly, the white-haired girl was not only not angry, but was very surprised and curious about her ability. The level of her enthusiasm made Robin too embarrassed to be angry again. So while eating, the two sat down and had a good chat calmly. During this chat, Robin discovered that the child was really innocent and innocent. He didn't have any hatred for God, at most he was dissatisfied with being forcibly brought back. She is a very cute little sister. Yamato has been inquiring curiously, asking about Robin's abilities, asking about the island, asking about everything. Robin answered her doubts very gently. In the past, the older sisters among the maids took care of her little sister, now she can also take care of the new little sister as an older sister. Although they only meet each other for meals every day, after a few days of getting along, the relationship between the two has become very good. Robin even decided to wait a few days and take Yamato to visit the island of the gods when he decides to rest. During lunch today, Yamato was still complaining to Robin as usual, complaining about how much God has gone too far. Robin was almost used to it. Anyway, the child was limited to complaining, and didn't have any excessive remarks. Then just listen to it. However, after washing everything in the dinner plate and licking the dinner plate clean by the way, Yamato sat next to Robin furtively. Robin saw Wen's nervous look, and couldn't help being a little bit of a doctor. You don't need to guess at all, you know what she is thinking now. Sister Robin, do you know of any way to leave this island? She cautiously approached Robin's ear and asked softly. Just knew you wanted to ask this. Robin smiled softly. If you want to leave here, you must get God's permission. Ah, why is this? The white-haired little girl pouted in frustration. God is the greatest existence in this world. Robin rubbed Yamato's head lightly, and said, since he chose you, then this is your honor, just respond to God's expectation well. It's not an honor. The little girl snorted, I don't want to be that guy's knight. Robin shook his head. Although he had only been together for a few days, he had already seen it. This girl is not smart, her mind is very simple, and her EQ is not very high, but she is very stubborn. It is definitely not an easy task to make her change her mind. However, there is no need to worry about this matter, right? God's word, as long as it is something he wants to do, it will never fail. After lunch, Yamato wiped his mouth aggressively. Sister Robin, I'm going to go find that guy. Looking at the back of her striding away, Robin felt a little funny. However, since God didn't express anything, it meant that he didn't care about this matter either. Then let the child have fun. What are you going to do to let me go back? When Du Lin was about to take a good nap, the aggressive little white-haired girl came to him again. God's decision will not change. Du Lin casually raised his hand to catch the little girl's fist, however, we can make an agreement. Agreement. Yamato blinked in surprise, what agreement? Whenever you can catch my move, then I will let you go. Du Lin smiled. Really? The white-haired girl's eyes lit up immediately, is it that simple? It's that simple. Du Lin nodded slightly. The bet is so uncomplicated that even an 8-year-old can understand it right away. But the bet itself was certainly not simple. Or should I say, it is as difficult as climbing to the sky. In this world, the only one who can withstand Du Lin's serious move at this time is the mysterious and unpredictable Lord Yimu, right? If he himself is a powerful faction, instead of simply relying on that ultimate weapon. As for Yamato, although she is very talented, she is indeed still a million points away from being able to withstand Du Lin's serious attack. That's all right now, come on. Yamato couldn't wait to rush towards Du Lin. Then Du Lin casually grabbed his head and threw him out. Still a long way to go. Du Lin smiled. If you want to become stronger, you can try to ask that guy for advice. That guy. Yamato sat up. Please guide me. On the square outside the temple. Gion, who was moved here by Princess Titi to bask in the sun, was a little dazed looking at the bowing girl in front of her. What? 4.4 inches, please guide me to become stronger. Yamato raised his head. His eyes were burning. I have a promise with that guy. Gion heard Yamato say that promise. She froze for a moment. The look at Yamato was rather complicated. How could it be possible to win this agreement, even if it's just a trick, etc. When did you become so depressed? Doesn't this mean that the guy can't be defeated? What a joke. Okay, I'll help you. Gion said in a deep voice, I'll help you become more powerful. Even if it's such a boring bet, I want to try to beat that guy. Great. The little girl jumped up happily. Where do we start? Teacher. Teacher. Ha, okay, then let me teach you swordsmanship. Chapter 237. Changes in the world. Time passed slowly. The last years of C-Circle calendar 1502 have thus passed, and the new year has arrived. During this period of time, the world as a whole maintained a calm situation. Marine continues to expand, and the Illuminati are also painstakingly managing the territory they occupy. The two behemoths did not fight each other in the following time, but everyone in the world knew that this was just a short period of tranquility. Sooner or later, the war will come, and I am afraid it will be an earth-shattering war that will completely rewrite the entire world pattern. But at least now the world can enjoy some long-lost peace. Yes, tranquility. The world as a whole is indeed becoming more peaceful. Needless to say, the sea area covered by the radiance of the sun god, the Sun Knights have always spared no effort in combating pirates, and they do not allow anyone to make trouble in the god's earthly kingdom. Now even the world government has allocated more military expenditures to Marine in order to compete with the Illuminati and win the hearts of the people. Marine, which had greatly expanded its army during this period, used the funds in exchange for a large number of 26 weapons and equipment. Although the advanced combat power has not been supplemented too much, the basic strength has been greatly enhanced. Then, centered on each Marine base, Marine warships also began high-intensity patrols at sea. Similarly, Marine is also very concerned about the fight against pirates. If there were any injured guy, it would probably be Haiba. The era of great pirates that used to be vigorous has been weakened in this way. For a while, the people on the sea didn't even know what to say. Has this era really just gotten better? I'm afraid not. What the real people of Insight know very well is that now is just the calm before the storm, just the stability before the volcanic eruption. The explosive kegs have already been laid, only the last spark is missing. But fortunately, as far as the present is concerned, it is not yet time for Mars to appear. During this period of time, the actions of the Illuminati went very smoothly. After all, for the priests, preaching is already very skilled. Control the regime, spread the teachings, show the flames, and develop believers. After this set, even the people of the government-affiliated countries are really hard to resist. Not to mention the masses of non-member countries, they sincerely welcome the arrival of the Illuminati. In just 1 year or so, the 4 seas in the New World, these sea areas that were only controlled before, have been filled with believers of the Illuminati. Koko Yaxi Village. This is a small village in East Blue, closer to Logue Town. So of course, when the Illuminati began their East Blue expansion, the village was also covered. There are more than 20 villages on the island where Koko Yaxi Village is located, but they have not formed a complete country. They are also under the jurisdiction of a kingdom on a nearby island, which is under the jurisdiction in name, but in fact it is only trusteeship. The villages on this island will regularly pay taxes to that kingdom, so as to obtain the protection of Marine through the status of the kingdom's world government member country. Other than that, the two sides have nothing to do with each other. That country is indeed not interested in this sparsely populated island with few resources. Generally speaking, although this is not a very rich island, it is also a very stable island. The same is certainly true of Koko Yaxi Village on this island. However, with the arrival of the Illuminati, such a stable life has naturally changed. The Marine branch near the island was destroyed, all the Marines stationed there were wiped out, and a priest and several Sun Knights entered the island grandly. It's not that the residents on the island haven't thought of resisting, but in front of the Sun Knight, their resistance is really too weak. When the Sun Knights soared into the air and blew up a hill with a flaming spear, all protest actions of the residents stopped. That is simply not a force they can resist. All they can do is submit. However, the trembling residents at the beginning soon discovered that after they stopped fighting, these Sun Knights not only did not kill wantonly, but took the initiative to maintain order. Even when pirates came to attack, they would not hesitate to shoot and sink them directly. The residents felt a little more at ease, and only then did they believe that the news in the newspapers that helped the Illuminati speak, turned out to be true. Then, the priests who came to this island began to preach. It should be said that the effect is very significant. On this day, the only priest on the island came to Koko Yaxi Village again to perform miracles and lead the residents to pray. Almost all the residents on the island came and prayed devoutly with the priest. They have deeply believed that as long as they show their piety, they can get God's mercy. You will be able to live a happy life, and even after death, you will be able to ascend to the kingdom of God and enjoy eternal joy. But the reason why almost everyone has come is that there are still people who have not come. Outside the crowd, a young mother held her two daughters in her arms and looked at the people who were praying with displeasure. HMPH, what do you think? The woman has pink hair, pushed flat on the sides, with only the top part tied into a ponytail. She was holding 723 unlit cigarettes in her mouth, probably because she was holding two children in her arms, one with orange hair and the other with sky blue hair. These guys are obviously criminals. But even if she said such stubborn words, she only dared to lower her voice. We don't understand what you're thinking, Belmere. A man wearing a sheriff's hat came over from the side. He hated iron and said, didn't you already withdraw from the Marine? Why are you so resistant to bathing in the glory of God? The woman named Belmere snorted coldly. Although she withdrew from Marine, she did not give up her insistence on justice. She will never forget the atrocities committed by the sun god and his subordinates. That is to say, now that she has two daughters as bonds, she can't leave them to join the struggle against this group of people, otherwise she would have already rushed forward to fight the priest to the death with her hot temper. Still, Belmere sighed. Her will be of no use at all, the entire island has fallen. Most of the people on this island, her hometown, have become loyal fans of the Illuminati. This island is a mirror image of all other areas that have just been ruled by the Illuminati. God's radiance really enveloped many people. Chapter 338. The Goal of Don Quixote. The situation in Kokoyasi village is by no means an isolated case. In East Blue, areas such as the island where Kokoyasi village is located are completely connected. Also in East Blue, in a certain sea area, a small pirate ship is slowly advancing. Going forward, we will enter the sea area controlled by the Illuminati Club. On the watchtower of the ship's mast, a man shouted down, it is impossible to replenish supplies in that area, and our ship will be attacked by the Sun Knight just by approaching it. No, even just sailing in that sea area will provoke attacks from the group of guys who fly and patrol the sky every day. Not to mention that most of the residents in this area have already believed in the god of the sun. Our whereabouts cannot be hidden. There's still time to return, Shanks. Below, the red-haired man with a straw hat on the prow of the boat also had a slightly dignified expression, but if you want to go to the Grand Line, you can only go to Calm Belt. No matter how scary the Calm Belt is, it can't be scarier than the Illuminati, right? A man with brown hair and dreadlocks said, even if we manage to break through this sea area and enter the canal on the upside-down mountain. But Shanks, don't forget, at the entrance of the Grand Line, the Twin Gorges, the Sun Knights have set up a checkpoint there. How should we deal with their attacks when we go down the steep canal? Quote. Yeah, that's a big trouble too. The red-haired man limply lay on the side of the boat, complaining like a salted fish, the serious look just now was gone. It would be great if I could get in touch with that god of the sun. I have met him once. He raised his head, thinking a little bit, but immediately began to shake his head. No, let's forget it. After all, Uncle Odin died because of them. Are you no longer friends? The red-haired young man sighed, and then put his hands on the straw hat on his head. Although it seems that this era no longer belongs to pirates. But the will of the captain must also be passed on. Turn, little ones, toward the Calm Belt. Oh oh. There was an instant burst of cheers on the boat. Although the Sea Kings of Calm Belt are also very dangerous, but at any rate, this avoids a direct confrontation with the Illuminati. The Illuminati and the god of the sun they believe in have never been merciful to their enemies. It's better to say that you will be punished. The boat turned, and then they will challenge the Calm Belt, which has been considered a natural barrier since ancient times. The situation in other four seas and New World is similar. The area covered by the Illuminati has basically become a whole. The countries and people within the range have become loyal fans of the sun god, offering their devotion to him. But, it's still not enough. On the temple square of the Island of Gods, Du Lin, who was basking in the sun, shook his head slightly. The territory expanded this time. Definitely enough to push the progress of the main mission a big step forward. After all, the sea area he actually controls at this time is equivalent to a small half of Qinghai. It is normal to get several treasure chests at once. After all, each piece of sea area occupies a fairly vast territory. But not enough. The system is not yet fully approved. Probably because the degree of domination is not enough. Most of the people have become believers, but after all, there are still some opponents. But it doesn't matter, it shouldn't be too long. After all, it's only been about a year. Du Lin is quite patient, after all his life has long been endless. After closing the system panel, Du Lin looked to one side with great interest. Over there, Rear Admiral Dion was slumping down on the ground, struggling to raise his head. But she was trying very hard to talk to another person. In front of her was a white-haired little ghost wielding a long knife vigorously. Yamato is practicing swordsmanship under the guidance of Dion. Although it was only a verbal instruction, with Yamato's talent, he has already mastered the long knife in his hand. Although she is not much taller than the knife in her hand, the blade swings very smoothly now. A series of arcs are flickering. While waving the blade, she also made a humming sound. The girl is working hard to become stronger. With the help of teacher Dion, she desperately wants to complete the bet with Du Lin. Du Lin is very satisfied with this. At this time, a certain guy flapped his wings and landed on the square, then quickly ran up to Du Lin, and knelt down on one knee. God, there is news. There was a considerable degree of excitement in Morgan's tone. He chuckled, the guy you asked me to investigate already has news. Quote. That guy. Lin thought about it for a while, and finally remembered. Oh, you mean, that Doflamingo guy. Yes, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Morgan said with a smile, the former celestial dragons, didn't you say that you want to see if you can learn from him about the instrument in the hands of the world government? I did give that order. But after so long, I almost forgot about it. Lin nodded slightly. Any news about him? Yes. Morgan said, probably because of his special status, he always hides it very well. But I finally found it. Really? Good job. Lin chuckled. Wang's good, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be imperiled in 100 battles. Lin called softly, Enel. It's Li. Just trash. More material is of course a good thing. Doflamingo must know the secret about the celestial dragon's national treasure. He once said that as long as he performed the immortal surgery, he would have a chance to get his hands on that national treasure. God. After thinking for a while, he said, bring the cadres under him with him. In that case, although it is still early, there must have been some gatherings. Take a trip to North Blue. Doflamingo. That guy's subordinates still have a bunch of cadres with quite interesting abilities. Enel lowered his head, just leave it to me. Lin said, go and bring that guy named Doflamingo over here. Vegapunk's artificial devil fruit research is progressing rapidly, and the difficulty of Paramesha devil fruit is about to be overcome. In the next instant, Enel had already appeared in front of him, and without any hesitation, he directly knelt down. Chapter 339 Enel's Trip to North Blue. North Blue. One of the 4 largest seas in the world. However, although it is a parallel relationship, it is well known that the quality of North Blue's pirates is not only higher than that of East Blue. It is very difficult to find a pirate with a bounty of more than 10 million in East Blue, but in North Blue, it is not uncommon to see a pirate with a bounty of 50 to 60 million. Among these pirates, Don Quixote Doflamingo is often considered the most cunning and cruel. After all, ordinary pirates will not destroy the entire town with their hands when they attack the town. That man seemed to be the embodiment of destruction. There was a terrifying desire to destroy in his heart. He seemed to want to destroy everything in this world. Of course, this is just the opinion of North Blue civilians and grassroots marines about him. This time, he became the prey. North Blue, Kingdom of Hartle. This country is close to the Upside Down Mountain, so of course, it is also one of the countries where North Blue is controlled by the Illuminati. On this day, it is located in the temple of the royal city of this country. A priest is standing respectfully under the statue of the sun god and bending down to pray. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. Master Enel 123. Without any hesitation, the priest had already bowed down and saluted respectfully. Are you ready? Enel asked indifferently with a flat expression. Yes, the priest hurriedly said, as soon as we received the order from Lord Mahad, we had already prepared the airship. It is now parked outside the temple, the supplies and accompanying guides are also in place, and you can start at any time. Very good. Enel nodded slightly. Although Doflamingo's lair has been found out, it is not an easy task to get there. If it is a place where priests and sun knights are stationed, the gods can send him directly. But the location of Doflamingo's lair obviously does not have this convenience. It can only be time-consuming and laborious to go there by boat. But in fact, it doesn't have much impact. After all, the floating speed of the floating ship is very fast. Even if you want to go from the entrance of the North Blue Grand Line to another sea area, it won't take long. Later, the airship lifts off from the city and starts flying in a certain direction towards North Blue. How long will it take? Enel stood at the bow of the boat, looking down at the boundless blue sea below, and asked questions without looking back. It will take about 2 days, Master Enel. Along with Enel is a Sun Knight. The others are grassroots members recruited by the Illuminati and the Knights of the Sun Banner. Some of them are attendants of the temple, and some are the soldiers of the Sun Knights. Priests have attendants, knights have troops, this is not a matter of course. 2 days. Enel frowned slightly. The Sun Knight noticed Enel's dissatisfaction, so he hurriedly said, if you are not satisfied, we can advance with overload, which can shorten the time by about half a day. It's just that, in that case, the ship will suffer irreversible damage. That kind of thing doesn't matter. Enel said casually, I want God to see that guy in the shortest possible time. Yes. As soon as the Sun Knight heard that it was God's intention, he immediately nodded solemnly, I'll make arrangements right away. The airship starts to move forward at full speed. This speed is quite astonishing. But Enel still disliked being too slow. There is no way, compared with him, a man who can move in the form of lightning, the speed of any vehicle is too slow. In short, now I can only endure it reluctantly. The next day, the distance to the destination is very close. Enel walked to the deck again, still full of urgency in his heart. Too slow. Who will bear the sin of making God wait for a long time? However, it is this time. CGCC. Enel bowed his head abruptly. The airship is flying above the clouds at this time, and looking down, you can only see a sea of white clouds, just like when you were on Sky Island. But Enel's observation hockey is otherworldly. Even a little wind and grass on the sea, he can clearly hear it. If it was just ordinary movements, then of course Enel would not care. The most important thing now is to complete the task entrusted by God. However, it does not seem to be ordinary thing. Stop for a moment. After leaving such a sentence, Enel instantly turned into a lightning bolt and disappeared on the deck. Sun Knight, who had been respectfully following behind him, was taken aback for a moment, and then quickly waved again and again. Stop the ship. Temporarily stop the ship. On the sea below, a group of snails is galloping forward. It was indeed a school of snails, a huge school of snails. A building is built on the back of the snail. When a large group of snails gather together, this group of buildings forms a small city. Behind this group of snails, on the sea surface not far away, a marine fleet is rapidly chasing it. A few guys in white suits and robes stood on the bow of a warship in the middle. For this piece of sea, people who know a little bit will know their names. CPO. Damn world government. It's after lousy like a mad dog. On the backs of the group of giant snails in front, in the most luxurious palace. The CPO snorted coldly, but didn't say anything after all. Without Vegapunk, the helpless world government can only choose to make up for it with quantity. Even their marine warships are only sailing ships after all, and their speed has a limit. It's different now, the sea has calmed down a little bit, and the government is able to pull out its hands to deal with him. The marines standing behind couldn't help it either. Little did he know, Vegapunk had been taken from him. It is true that Marine cannot be blamed for this incident. In fact, he has been targeted by the government a long time ago, but the world government has been struggling a while ago, and there is not much time to deal with him. If you still want to chase after me, accelerate again. The man with brilliant blonde hair and wearing a mask covering the upper half of his face was yelling, the Illuminati Society didn't bother you after all, can't you be more honest? The man named Vinsmoke Judge had a fierce look in his eyes, don't blame Lousy for being rude. A CPO in the center urged coldly, Judge must not be allowed to escape, this is an order from the 5 elders adults. However, this is already the fastest speed. No matter whether it was the fleeing value or the Marine CP0s who came after them, what neither of them noticed was that there was a figure in the sky looking down on them quietly. The world government is now seriously lacking in the power of science. Chapter 240 Judge and God. On the island of the gods, Dulin received a communication from Enel. Vinsmoke Judge. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Yes, God. Enel's voice rang in his head, Marine CPO is hunting him, it seems that the 5 elders personally gave orders. Vinsmoke Judge is Vegapunk's former research partner, and the Vinsmoke family is the former North Blue royal family, so I think this matter should be decided by God. What should I do next? What should I do? Dulin thought for a while. Compared with Vegapunk, Judge really has no talent. Even though the modified man and battlesuit technology he made later are quite amazing, but it is still far from enough in front of Vegapunk. Dulin thinks that he has a very right to speak about this. After all, the science and technology he has mastered at this time should not be under Vegapunk at all, but he has no interest in it. Logically speaking, then Judge is completely unimportant. But, if the world government wants it, then don't let him get it. The principles Dulin follows are fairly simple. Even if it is a meaningless thing, as long as it can add obstacles to the world government, it is a meaningful thing. Then send Judge to me. Dulin put it this way, let me meet him. Yes. In North Blue, Enel, who was floating in the sky, nodded slightly, I'll send that man to you right away. God cut off the call. Enel looked down at the sea below. Now that God has issued an oracle, the next step is to complete it. However, before going to the judge, Enel lowered his head slightly and looked at the marine fleet on the sea. Let's get rid of these annoying guys first. Black and white thunder has already jumped up from his body. There was a dangerous smile on the corner of Enel's mouth, Wan. Thunder fell like a torrential rain. Below, on the warship. The CP-0s are staring at the big snail on the sea in the distance. The marine warship was unable to catch up, and they were already a little annoyed. Or just use moonwalk to catch up. Anyway, the distance is not too far. But that's when CP-0s have such thoughts in their hearts. In the sky, the thunder of destruction descended. A sea ship next to it was directly pierced by the thunder in an instant, then snapped off in the middle, and exploded loudly. Before the CPO and Marines could react, more thunderstorms landed. All the ships were bombarded mercilessly by thunder. This is, all the CP-0s can do is scream, Black Thunder Enel. The characteristics are too obvious. In this world, except for the Knight of God, no one has mastered this kind of black and white thunder. However, although the attacker was successfully identified, Marine and the CPOs were unable to do anything. Thunder destroyed everything in an instant. In just an instant, there was only a piece of ship debris left on the sea. But the falling thunder still didn't stop. Enel's sense of knowledge kept detecting this sea area, and he wanted to clear all the enemies. This process didn't take too long. In the face of his thunder, these Marines and CPs had no resistance at all. In less than a minute, Enel clearly heard all the sounds on the sea disappear. So, Enel raised his head slightly and looked at the group of big snails in front of him. He turned into lightning and disappeared into the sky. Ahead, in the palace on the snail's back, Judge noticed what was happening behind him. What is that? Judge was almost dumbfounded. What is that thunder that fell from the sky? In an instant, that marine fleet has been directly wiped out. That can't be the thunder of nature. There are no dark clouds in the sky, and the natural thunder cannot be black with white. A trace of cold sweat suddenly oozes from Judge's forehead. He remembered. Who in the sea has this special thunder? Vinsmoke Judge. The voice sounded from behind him. Judge turned his head almost in horror, and saw the thunder gathering behind him. How come? How did this guy show up here? How could Judge not know this man? Topless, long earlobes, iconic turban. The Knight of the Gods under the command of the Sun God, Black Thunder Enel. A real monster. Ask for flowers. How did this guy appear here? The Illuminati has indeed expanded in North Blue, but isn't their coverage far from here? Of course Judge knew how terrifying the man in front of him was. The only question is, why did he appear here? It's an honor though, Vinsmoke Judge. Enel stepped forward slowly, and said calmly, God wants to see you. God. Judge's eyes widened. Of course, the God in this man's mouth is only the God of the Sun. That man is a madman of Mariajoy and Marineford. The scariest monster that has appeared since the establishment of the world government 800 years ago. Who wants to see that guy? Judge subconsciously said angrily. Isn't that too dangerous? How could he do such a stupid thing? It's not something you can refuse. Enel appeared in front of Judge in the next instant, and put his hand on his shoulder. No one can disobey God's decision. The sky is quite empty and Luo Luo starts. It didn't even need to be connected at all. Ji had already disappeared in front of him in the next second. Enel didn't have any accidents. That guy had been summoned by God. Judge felt his eyes spinning. It's just that in the next moment, he has come to a completely strange place. Where is this place? Judge looked around in horror. He seemed to be in a temple-like building. Vinsmoke Judge. He heard a voice. What is your decision? Judge raised his head in horror. In front of him was a set of high steps, and on the top of the steps, on the platform, was a luxurious throne. The god sat on the jade throne, quietly looking down at him. Surrender or die, what's your answer? The muscles in Judge's cheeks began to twitch, and his teeth clashed against each other. What happened? What exactly is going on? Why do you appear here? Why did it appear in front of this sun god? Too horrible. What a scary guy. Just being watched by his gaze, I felt my legs start to go weak. Oops, gotta kneel big. Chapter 241 Judge surrenders. Doflamingo. Judge wants to cry but has no tears. Why did he encounter so many unlucky things? It's okay to be the world government recently. After all, he is also the king of the franchise country, so it is estimated that even if the government arrests him, there will be no major problems. But being targeted by the man in front of him is a big problem. This man is a real monster. Not only is he a monster in terms of strength, but his behavior is also of a jaw-dropping level. Of course Judge knew what a storm this guy had brought to the world. This man is without a doubt the #1 enemy of the world government. But this is where the horror lies. Even so, the government has nothing to do with him. He and the guys he leads are terrifying enough to fight the world government. When such a monster appeared in front of him and asked him, 463, Judge only felt his body trembling. Oops oops oops. If you choose to refuse, you will be killed in the next moment, right? At this moment, Mr. Judge had only this last thought in his mind. I can't control myself at all. The arrogance of being a top scientist, the arrogance of being a member of the North Blue royal family, everything is completely ignored now. Driven by instinct, Judge knelt down in front of Du Lin, shouting as if screaming. The individual's emotion has completely lost to the instinct of the body. I can't care about what I think anymore, and now Judge just wants to live. Very good. Du Lin nodded in satisfaction. Although Judge is not an important guy, his respectful attitude is very satisfying. Then let's go on. As usual, Du Lin's fingertips ignited a flame, he flicked it, and the fire had already flown towards Judge's forehead. No rejection is allowed. Judge froze and didn't dare to move, watching helplessly as the spark penetrated into his forehead. Is this the flame that the god of the sun gave to his subordinates? Soon Judge had confirmed his conjecture. He looked at the flames emerging from his fingertips, with a look of surprise mixed with bewilderment. The power possessed by gods is above technology. The technology of transforming people that he has painstakingly researched seems to be completely incomparable with the power of this god. Then, you should go back first. Du Lin smiled. Lead your country well first. Before Judge could answer, he found that the scene in front of him changed again. It was only the next second that he had already returned to his own palace. Judge swallowed with some difficulty. Was what happened just now really not a hallucination? What is God's command? But immediately, the inquiry from the side brought Judge back to reality in an instant. Yeah, how could this be an illusion? Judge hurriedly said submissively, God didn't command anything, but let me lead this country properly. Enel nodded lightly. Since this is God's order, then you should do it properly. Then he warned in a deep voice, remember well, you are not allowed to do anything that is not good for God, otherwise, before God punishes you, I will turn you into charcoal. Judge's body trembled again. He nodded again and again, yes, I understand, Master Enel. In the next second, Enel turned into lightning and disappeared in front of Judge. There isn't much time to waste on this guy, it is necessary to send that guy Doflamingo to God in the shortest possible time. Seeing Enel disappearing in front of him, Judge felt relieved from the bottom of his heart, and sat down on the ground. Almost thought it was dead. It's like my heart is about to explode. Fortunately, survived. But, Judge subconsciously pressed his hand on his heart. The great sun god summoned himself in front of him on purpose, and then planted a fire for himself, probably not just wanting to give himself strength. Of course, there is also the power to restrict oneself in that fire seed. Judge sighed. He also said that he would restore the glory of his ancestors, command the entire North Blue again, and turn this vast sea area into the inland sea of the Vinsmoke family. But in the end, even his own freedom was lost. What should we do next? Is there any way to get rid of the control of the sun god? Thinking this way in Judge's mind, he is going to check his body immediately to see how the fire exists in his body. But what he didn't expect at all was that it might not be long before he would completely give up this idea, and turn to regard that god as the most important existence in life wholeheartedly. Go ahead. Enel had returned to the floating ship in the sky in an instant, and just as he condensed his body, he calmly gave the order. Yes, the airship moved forward at full speed again, passing the sky like a gust of wind. North Blue, Babar Island. This island is not well known in North Blue, and there is a bustling town on the island. Like the water capital, this is an independent city, and it is not under the jurisdiction of any country. Yes, Dover. Doflamingo froze suddenly. This month's business is good. In the suburbs outside the city, there is a manor. She. That's right. In the depths of the manor, a man in a red suit sat on a 3.3-inch wide chair with his legs crossed, and two beautiful women leaned on him. The big businessman seldom appeared himself, but let his subordinates handle various affairs. Everyone on the island knew that the owner of the manor was the richest businessman with the largest industry in the city. Because of their actions, the government has artificially divided North Blue into two parts, and the transportation of materials is prohibited, so that we can make a lot of money by smuggling. But the people in the city are still very aware of his wealth. After all, the materials ordered from various shops every month belong to the emperor. The man named Doflamingo laughed loudly. We should really thank that sun god. But it's strange that no one has ever seen what he looks like. In this way, in front of the man is a disgusting man who is obese, sticky and snot-like. Speaking of which, I really should thank the Illuminati. Really? So how are you going to thank God? The man grinned. It seems that there is another wave of energy efficiency expansion. The two women stretched out a hand each, flipping through a stack of documents for him. It's just that one thing that the residents on the island don't know is that the owner of this manor is indeed a businessman, but this is just his part-time job. Chapter 242 NLV's Don Quixote family. When the smile on Doflamingo's face froze instantly. The two women leaning on him felt that their waists were tightened, and their bones seemed to be crushed by the young master's two big hands. Who? The man standing in front of Doflamingo jumped up as if he had been electrocuted, and looked back. He saw Enel with a calm face. Baggy trousers, bare upper body, long earlobes, and coins on the head. Ah, like Judge, the man also recognized Enel instantly. Black Thunder Enel. No way. In the past few years, the god of the sun and his knights and priests have been the most prominent in the sea. Among all the knights, Enel may not be the strongest, but he must be one of the most showy. Anyone who pays a little attention to the influential figures in the sea will never be unfamiliar with this man. In addition to being pirates, the Don Quixote family is also very accomplished in business, not to mention that they still have a rather weak force in the underground world. They really know too much about this world. Although they are not considered to be such a great force for the time being, they definitely cannot be called as ignorant of information. How is it possible not to recognize a guy as famous as Enel on the sea? Dover. The big cadre of the Don Quixote family, the sticky man named Torrible looked back at his leader almost in horror. What should I do? Dover, the Knight of the Gods is coming. These guys are real monsters one by one. Even though this Black Thunder Enel is far from the most powerful among the Knights of God, his strength is obvious to all on the sea. Even Admiral, Naval Headquarters, backup, can't take advantage of him at all. Such a guy appeared in front of me, what should I do now? Torrible only felt that there was no master in his heart. Without a doubt, this is the biggest crisis the Don Quixote family has faced since their establishment. Hey. Doflamingo didn't even stand up, he was still lazily lying on the wide chair, even his hands were still stroking the slender waist of the beauties in his arms. It's just that the faces of these two beauties are somewhat stiff. Even they know the famous Sun Knight in front of them. But fortunately, their young master still had a bright smile on his face at this time. After all, he had met that sun god long ago, and Enel had also met him a long time ago. In fact, I was a little shocked at the first time, but now I have almost recovered. It's really interesting, why did the famous Knight of the Gods, Black Thunder Enel, appear here at Lousy? Could it be possible? Doflamingo lowered his legs, retracted his hands from the waists of the two beauties, put his elbows on his knees, and leaned forward. This posture combined with his height filled him with a sense of oppression. Could it be that the sun god gave some instructions? You can be proud of it though, Doflamingo. Enel's expression remained unchanged. Although Doflamingo was much taller than him, just being tall was of no use in this world. God wants to see you, and your subordinates. Oh. Doflamingo raised his hand and pushed the toad mirror on the bridge of his nose. There is such a thing. That is indeed an honor. After all, the god of the sun is indeed very remarkable. Even the world government can't do anything about them. But, Doflamingo smiled lightly again, can you tell me, what is your god looking for Lousy for? It's actually not bad to meet that god, it would be even better if we could reach a cooperation with them. Anyway, world government is also my goal, and I appreciate the attitude of the sun god who would not hesitate to turn the whole world upside down in order to achieve his goal. More importantly, they are really strong enough. Being able to cooperate with such a guy will definitely be a huge boost to the development of my Don Quixote family. It's not something you should care about. Enel's attitude remained indifferent. Except when facing God, Enel always has such an indifferent appearance in front of anyone, as if he doesn't care about other things. There is only one thing you need to do now, Call all the cadres under your command immediately, and then go to God with me. The smile on Doflamingo's face finally faded away. She, this is really disrespectful. Although there was still a little smile in the words, the expression on Doflamingo's face has gradually become dangerous. This is not the attitude that cooperation should have. Cooperate. Enel paused for a moment, then he raised his head slightly, and asked in a puzzled way, did you make a mistake? When God wants to see you, you should bow down and kneel in front of him respectfully at the first time. When he doesn't want to see you, you have to paint to the end of the world in the shortest possible time. It's that simple. Before he could finish his sentence, veins stood out on Doflamingo's forehead. Dover. The door of the room was kicked open forcefully, and a rather huge man squeezed in from the door frame almost instantly. Although his size is unbelievably huge, his voice is extremely thin. Why are you still hesitating? Get rid of this guy. No one can be so arrogant in front of us. There are several guys behind him. The leader is a man wearing a cloak and oil paint on his face. The man flicked his hand casually, and a ribbon hung from his wrist. The ribbon collapsed in the next instant, and 423 directly turned into an iron sword. That's right. Let this bullshit knight see our strength. There are a few guys behind him. Young people in suits, middle-aged men in strange tights, middle-aged women in dresses, and so on. Shishishexi. Doflamingo finally stood up. He twisted his neck and spread his hands. You can also see, hey Lay, my family members don't seem to be interested in the summoning of your god. So, let's stop here. You are not welcome here, so let's leave quickly. Enel's expression didn't change until now. You made another mistake, Doflamingo. I never said you have the right to delay. When God says he wants to see you, the only thing you can do is go and see. If you refuse, then only I can help you. Is that so? The corners of Doflamingo's mouth were completely raised. That's really helpless. What are you doing talking so much nonsense with him? The huge man had already rushed towards Enel, and he pulled out the giant sword on his back. The sword was even longer than himself, so that it split the ceiling first when it was swung. Enel nodded. Wouldn't it be better to do this earlier? I'm too lazy to waste my words. Chapter 243 Crushing. To be honest, Doflamingo felt somewhat apprehensive about starting a war with the man in front of him. Of course, this does not mean that he is afraid of the power of the man in front of him. Black Thunder Enel is indeed extraordinary in strength, but Doflamingo is not so fearful as a tiger. If it's just him alone, maybe he really can't do it. But if his family and his subordinates are added, it will be different. What Doflamingo was really afraid of was, of course, the god of the sun, and of course the power possessed by that monster. That is a terrorist force capable of confronting the world government in the true sense. Even though he is quite confident in his Don Quixote family, Doflamingo can be sure that if he really wants to go to war with that group of people, then the only result may be that his Don Quixote family will be crushed into powder in an instant. If possible, Doflamingo certainly doesn't want to go to war. Compared with fighting, cooperation is of course better. But now there seems to be no other choice. Black Thunder Enel, this guy is too arrogant. Didn't take myself seriously at all. Although Doflamingo doesn't mind lowering his profile a little in front of the group, that doesn't mean he's willing to let his dignity be trampled on. So now we can only fight. It's not a big deal when you think about it, is it? The big deal is to change the lair after solving this guy. This world is very big. Even if the Illuminati covers a fairly wide range, they may be helpless if they find an island to hide at random. So, hit it up. She. Overwhelm the whip. At the same time that the man with a huge physique, that is, the pickup truck of the Don Quixote family's chief cadre started to move, Doflamingo also smirked and swung his hands, and two long whips formed by silk threads spread out from his palm. Enel finally reacted to this. He raised his left hand. The black and white thunder condensed on his fingertips, and then turned into a ray, which burst out in an instant. Well, Pickup's movement of waving the big sword froze for a moment. The black and white thunder directly penetrated his chest, flew out from behind, pierced the wall, and shot deeper into the manor. At the same time, the silk thread sent by Doflamingo directly cut Enel in half. Enel's upper body was flying in the air, but Doflamingo had no joy. Hockey is useless. Wrong. Was using elementalize before being hit. But at this point Doflamingo doesn't even have time to think about it. He saw the figure falling slowly. Pick up. Doflamingo growled under his breath. But it's useless. What should fall will eventually fall. The chest was pierced by the thunder, and the man named Pika couldn't hold it anymore. He vomited blood, and the whole person had fallen directly on his back. Thank God for his generosity, fool. The lower half of Enel's body turned into a thunderbolt, which was connected to the upper body in the next second, making his body complete again. He just looked down at the fallen Pickup coldly. It is his kindness that keeps you alive. Machine rash. If God didn't tell him to bring the cadres under Doflamingo with him, then this guy would be dead by now. UB*******************. D. The man with gaudy paint on his face is also the top cadre of the Don Quixote family, and the man named Diamante uses the cloak behind him. The cloak swirls and spreads like a spear. Then in the next second, the cloak became extremely hard, or it returned to its original nature. Diamante is a paramesha flying fruit capable person, who can soften all things and flutter in the wind like a flag. And when he removes this ability, those substances will of course immediately return to their original properties. The cloak made of steel really turned into a sharp spear at this moment. Then the tip of the spear was held directly by Enel's right hand. In the next second, black and white thunder spread directly on the steel spear. Oh, bad. Only then did Diamante realize that he had done something stupid. Using a weapon made of steel to attack a person with the ability to manipulate thunder, isn't that looking for electricity? But it was too late, thunder had already covered his body in an instant. Wow, even though Enel had deliberately controlled the power, Diamante's hair was still blown up by the electricity, and he screamed continuously, and he couldn't even let go of his hand. After Enel stopped the electric shock, Diamante fell to the ground with his whole body scorched black and breathing black air. Dropping ruffian string, Doflamingo's face darkened. His blood family members are all dead now, and now these subordinates are the family members he recognizes in his heart. Silk threads fell from the sky, trying to run through Enel directly from top to bottom. Enel turned into lightning. Black and white lightning flashed across the room in an instant. First there was the slimy man named Torrible, with the light going through his chest. Then he rolled his eyes and passed out. Boom. Then Enel stood in front of him again. Before Doflamingo's attack hit Enel, the black and white thunder dragon had directly knocked Doflamingo into the air. Doflamingo catapulted forward, tiptoe-covered hockey, and delivered a powerful blow to Enel's head. His heel is still connected with one silk thread after another. Even if he escapes this kick, by Zhao, the silk thread will make a second attack in the next step. The only one who can stand now is Doflamingo. Doflamingo couldn't stop it, all he could do was growl in anger. The manor was completely shattered in an instant, and the thunder that soared into the sky directly attracted the attention of the entire city. After soaring to a very high sky, it turned again, and hit the central part of the manor again. The thunder dragon directly shattered the wall in front of it, and then flew upwards in a circle. Enel raised his right hand, when it turned into a long dragon. Leg shave string. In the smoke, Enel beckoned, and thunderbolts rolled over all the guys who were knocked down by him just now, and one of the thunderbolts rolled over Doflamingo. Then there were the other cadres of the Don Quixote family who were just about to pounce on Enel, and the thunder also penetrated them completely in an instant. Damn it! Thunder of judgment. But Enel wasn't even trying to hide. The next step is to confirm whether all the cadres have arrived. Chapter 244 Doflamingo and the Gods. Doflamingo came to his senses. He could feel severe pain coming from every angle of his body, as if his body had been torn into the tiniest and tiniest pieces. He couldn't help but let out a muffled grunt. But, apart from excruciating pain, Doflamingo didn't feel warm and comfortable. Something wrapped him up. Doflamingo immediately figured out what was surrounding him. Flame. Bright yellow flames wrapped his body and were healing his injuries. Is this the healing flame held by the priests of the Illuminati that have been rumored in the sea for a long time? This is the first time I've seen it, and I didn't expect it to be used on myself. However, is it so easy to lose? Doflamingo was still a little dazed. Is the gap in strength so huge? In front of this guy, he has no power to fight back, and he has been completely defeated with one move. The warm feeling was dissipating quickly. Doflamingo couldn't help but pursed his lips, and the flames wrapped around his body disappeared. He turned his head slightly, and Enel, who was standing beside him, came into his eyes. 390 inches have all the cadres arrived just now. Enel looked down at him condescendingly. God said to bring you and the cadres under your command over there, so there must be no one left. Doflamingo's mouth twitched. Let alone anger, not even a little bit of annoyance. It's like something that doesn't matter anymore. He didn't take himself and others seriously at all. What a monster. Doflamingo finally sighed. He lay sprawled on the ground, not wanting to move. In other words, it is very difficult to get excited now. And a few more kids, he said. Enel nodded slightly. If so, the task is complete. Later, the island of the gods. Du Lin received the Tiantincongluo newsletter initiated by Enel. God, Doflamingo has been captured by me, and all the cadres under his command are also under my control. Very good. Du Lin nodded lightly. Very well done, Enel. As expected of him being the first knight of God under his command, he never let him down. JBE. Then come back. Du Lin smiled lightly. The ability to dominate has been activated. Enel's body instantly fell under his control. Thunder has spread out from him as the center, and then covered Doflamingo and all the cadres under his command. Finally, Flying Thunder God technique. When the body was covered by thunder, Doflamingo was a little confused about the current situation. Didn't you say that you want to take yourself to meet the god of the sun? Why did you suddenly attack again? But the next second, Doflamingo was dumbfounded. The scene in front of him changed instantly, and he had already appeared in a temple directly from the ruins of his own manor. Meet you again, Don Quixote de Frank. Doflamingo hadn't heard it for too long, so it had become a little unfamiliar. He turned his head with some effort, and then saw the lazy figure leaning on the high throne. The pupils of the eyes behind the toad mirror shrank slightly. What the hell is going on? How did I appear here in an instant from North Blue's manor? Is it Enel's ability? But this is not right. Isn't Enel a Logia Thunder Fruit ability user? How could he have such ability? Or, Doflamingo looked at the lazy Du Lin in astonishment. Is it this guy's ability? But isn't this guy a phantom beast? What exactly is going on? What are you doing? Enel frowned. Didn't you hear God talking to you? Doflamingo took a few breaths of relief slowly, calming down his astonishment a little bit. Should I say honor? Great sun god. There was actually a bit of a smile in his voice. Isn't that a matter of course? Enel snorted coldly. Being able to meet God is already a lucky thing in your life. Meow meow meow, Urkurgururo. Doflamingo was grinning wryly. Although it was strenuous, he was indeed making an effort to laugh. Heal him, Enel, 11. Lin propped his face with his right hand, and said lazily, otherwise, in the middle of the question later, I'll just pass out. Yes, box. Enel nodded respectfully, and then released the healing flame again, enveloping Doflamingo's body. Well, Doflamingo groaned in comfort. Now he finally understood why the Illuminati was able to expand rapidly on the sea, and why those priests were able to capture the faith of a large number of people in the shortest possible time. This healing flame is really powerful. Doflamingo can easily feel that the injury he was hit by Enel just now is recovering rapidly. In just this short time, Doflamingo even sat up from the ground. Although I can still feel the severe pain from my body, it is no longer a serious problem. Amazing. Doflamingo couldn't help but exclaimed, it's amazing. What is the source of such terrifying power? Is it science? Or is it caused by some special devil fruit? Lin said with a smile. In this way, it is somewhat understandable why many pirates united to kidnap a priest. Doflamingo was stunned, but what he knows is that it is impossible to get fixed in vain. Doflamingo swallowed hard. Doflamingo doesn't yet know what the price of this power will be. Lin paused. It's about the secret of the world government, and it may also be called the national treasure of celestial dragons. This guy, has he already confronted the national treasure of the celestial dragons? If you are interested, I can give you a copy later. Doflamingo raised his head and pushed the toad mirror on the bridge of his nose. Why did you ask me to come here? There is something I want to ask you. So, now tell me all you know, Doflamingo. Lin said, so before the final battle, we must first find out the details of that thing. So, God of the Sun. Doflamingo didn't know, but he was certainly interested in this power. After all, this kind of power is too powerful. Really? Then I'm not going to be polite. That thing is very troublesome, even I think so, and I almost suffered a loss last time. Chapter 245, Immortality. Quote. National treasure of the celestial dragons. Doflamingo spoke slowly. Sun God, what are you talking about? I don't understand. How do I know what celestial dragon's national treasure is? Lin frowned slightly. In the next second, Enel stepped forward and directly pressed Doflamingo to the ground. Are you trying to deceive God, idiot? The long sword made of black thunder pierced directly into the floor next to Doflamingo's neck. The jumping fiery thunder instantly made Doflamingo feel that his neck was numb. Lying is not a good habit, Doflamingo. Lin said leisurely. The Don Quixote family was the ruler of Daros Rosa back then, and later went to Mariajoy and became a member of the Celestial Dragons. It's just that your father chose to give up his identity as Celestial Dragons back then and took your family back to the sea. You have come to the bottom of the sea from nowhere. Doflamingo's expression had changed. The most unbearable memory was directly punctured by the man in front of him, even he couldn't keep smiling anymore. Doesn't this guy know a little too much? He actually knows his true identity. So, Lin sat up slightly, and looked down at Doflamingo condescendingly. Now you just need to tell me what I want to know honestly. I don't really want people to reject me. The momentum has been raised slightly, and at this moment, Doflamingo can only feel his whole body trembling. The terrifying aura almost stopped him from thinking. Is this haki from Conquerors? How could there be such a powerful Conqueror's haki? It's too exaggerated. Doflamingo himself is also the holder of Conqueror's haki, so he knows how exaggerated the scale of Conquerors is. Even a man of his strength is about to be unable to stand upright, and even this sun god is far from exerting his full strength. Monster. This guy is a real monster. Call. Doflamingo was panting heavily, his heart was oppressed by the man's aura, almost stopped beating. He finally said, I see, since that's the case, I don't seem to have anything to hide. The so-called national treasure of celestial dragons, I actually don't know much about it. After all, I left Mariajoy when I was very young, and I just vaguely heard adults talking about it when I was young. Doflamingo's expression became serious. It is said that it is a weapon that is even more powerful than ancient weapon. It is the weapon that helped the 20 kings seize the entire world 800 years ago, and it is also the biggest reliance of the world government to rule the world. Originally, the existence of this national treasure was a secret to the celestial dragons, but 19 years ago, the world government encountered a huge threat, so that weapon was dispatched. 19 years ago. Lin thought for a while. You mean about the Valley of the Gods? That's right. 19 years ago, the rocks attacked the Valley of the Gods. Doflamingo nodded solemnly. The actions of those people have already threatened the government's rule. Although I don't know exactly what happened on that island that year, what is certain is that the national treasure was indeed dispatched. So, later on, people got the news that the Valley of the Gods was completely erased from this world. Lin nodded slightly. Not surprisingly, it is not so easy to completely erase the traces of an island in a simple battle, even if the top monsters like Roger Whitebeard Rocks Garp participated in the battle at the time. Something else was involved, which is almost a complete guess. Actually, until that time, only a few keen celestial dragons noticed this. When he said this, Doflamingo sneered. You also know what kind of trash the ordinary celestial dragons are. Lin smiled. Ordinary celestial dragons certainly don't pay attention to these things, they just enjoy life and it's too late. Where do they get the time to think about things that require effort? It turns out that we still have such power. These celestial dragons thought so, so they started to explore. Doflamingo continued, but the search didn't yield much, and they were stopped by the 5 elders. Ask for flowers. However, after all, they still found clues from the ancient books passed down by their respective families. That is the terrorist force that the government used to unify the world. It is the strongest shield that truly protects the celestial dragons. There was a sneer at the corner of Doflamingo's mouth, so of course, these celestial dragons want to get their hands on that power. The result is that, as soon as the action is taken, their existence has been completely erased from Mariajoy. Du Lin took it for granted. That weapon is of course Im's forbidden possession. Even if celestial dragons dare to covet it, what they will get is of course destruction. After all, to Im, celestial dragons are no different from ordinary people on the sea. If you have to tell me there are any secrets. Blah, 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 blah. Du Lin became a little interested. Doflamingo said solemnly, do you believe it? Enel frowned, there is only one god in this world. That is the supreme god of the sun. Doflamingo put it this way, only the immortal can control that weapon. Maybe it's a loss of lifespan, maybe it's something else, anyway, only the immortal can take that weapon. He looked at Du Lin, god of the sun, behind the world government there is a monster who is more qualified to be called a god than you, and has survived from 800 years ago to today. 0. Du Lin said leisurely, let him continue, what other secrets have those curious celestial dragons discovered? Or to be precise, it has something to do with that guy's immortality. Doflamingo is not nervous at all now, and said with a smile, if you feel uncomfortable, how about going to trouble with that guy? Oh, never mind, Enel, bold, immortality. Although the guys who survived by chance were trembling, some of them couldn't help but want to find the truth. He is immortal. Doflamingo paused, probably that weapon is closely related to that guy. Chapter 246 Doflamingo surrenders. Good news for Vegapunk. Du Lin then asked the most concerned question. So Doflamingo, do you know how to get that weapon? Doflamingo laughed and shook his head, of course I don't know. That should be the deepest secret hidden by the world government. I have already left Mariajoy when I was 8 years old, how could I know such a thing? Du Lin nodded slightly. This guy shouldn't be lying. If such secrets, were casually known, then he would probably not live for 800 years, nor would he be able to rule the world for these 800 years. But it doesn't matter, it's worth the money to get this secret from Doflamingo this time. Only the immortal can seize the weapon in Im's hand. Interesting. The corners of Du Lin's mouth were raised. As a god, the weapons under the hands of 230 should be the strongest in the world, right? And it must be interesting to take that weapon from Im's hands. Du Lin is already looking forward to that time, what kind of reaction will that guy have? It must be very interesting, right? All that I know has been told to you now. Doflamingo looked up at Du Lin tentatively, and said cautiously, so can you let us go back now? Just being with this guy gives you a real sense of creepiness. It's like a little rabbit suddenly fell into the wolf's lair, like the absolute suppression from the food chain, making him almost stand up concurrently. Go back. Where to go? Du Lin asked in surprise, is there any place you can go back? Doflamingo's face froze instantly. This means I don't want him to leave at all. Although my base camp was destroyed by your subordinates, with Lousie's power in North Blue, I can rebuild my lair anywhere. What does Lousie have no place to go back to? It's an honor, Doflamingo. The corner of Du Lin's mouth raised, I'm giving you a chance to bask in the sun's rays. Contrary to him, the corners of Doflamingo's mouth sank in an instant. Oh no, this guy really doesn't make sense at all. Join my subordinates and become my subordinates. Du Lin smiled and said, if it's you, you are qualified to become a member of the Knights of God, a knight who is only below me and only fights for me. I will share my glory with you, so that you can follow me to the top of the world. Then, Don Quixote Doflamingo, what is your answer? Lousie's favorite thing is to say no to self-righteous people. Doflamingo's jaw was clenched. Are you getting too carried away? D. Do you think that you are powerful, that you can do whatever you want because you think that you are amazing? Lousie is going to teach you a lesson today, not everyone will succumb to violence. Doflamingo felt ruthless in his heart. Then of course there is only one answer. Doflamingo took a deep breath, then knelt down on one knee. This rebellious man lowered his head deeply towards Du Lin. I will be loyal to you. Du Lin smiled with great interest. I thought you would choose to refuse. How could it be, the god of the sun? Doflamingo still lowered his head, not raising his head at all, and his voice also became respectful at this moment. As you said, it is my great honor to be able to bathe in your brilliance. Of course Doflamingo didn't want to die. He knew very well that once he chose to refuse, he and all his family members would be decapitated in this instant. Moreover, the man in front of him is different. If one thinks that pure violence can make him submit, it would be a little underestimating Doflamingo. Another important reason why he is willing to bow to Du Lin is that Du Lin and his subordinates really have the power to subvert the whole world. And that's what Doflamingo has been longing for. Although he always wanted to do this by himself, he would knock the celestial dragons into the dust by himself, and let those celestial dragons who refused him to return to Mariajoy know what it means to regret. But now, if he chooses to refuse, his life will end here, and this dream will be shattered directly. Between death and finding someone to replace him to fulfill this dream, Doflamingo made a not so difficult choice. Very well, you made a good choice, Dover. Du Lin clapped his hands and smiled. Then, let's take it, this is a symbol of the Night of the Gods. Du Lin immediately released a ball of high-grade fire from his fingertips, and it shot directly to Doflamingo's heart. It has been a while since high-level sparks have been made, and Du Lin's reserves are very sufficient now. After all, not everyone is suitable to be a Knight of God. Frem, who was exceptionally bestowed a high-level fire by Du Lin, has not awakened his unique ability until now. Although there is a lack of fierce fighting factors, his own aptitude does limit him. However, Doflamingo should not have this problem. Anyway, it is also the Shichibukai in the original work, the second-tier master of the sea. Well, Doflamingo felt a sudden heat in his heart. In his astonished eyes, the group of flames went straight into his chest. Then he felt a strange force spreading from the heart to the whole body. Feel the power, Dover. Du Lin smiled and said, strive to evolve your own history as soon as possible. Doflamingo raised his hands in astonishment, the flames had already started to splash from his fingertips. So, that's it, not tech, nor devil fruit abilities. This is really the power bestowed by God. Amazing, this is really amazing. So, is this the same way for both the destructive flame and the healing flame? 3.9. Even say, evolution. Doflamingo looked back at Enel. This guy is a Logia Thunder Fruit capable user, but the thunder he displayed is completely different from the one recorded in the Devil Fruit illustrated book. Is that the ability that this guy has evolved to belong to himself? Of course, this can't be Devil Fruit's ability, how could there be such an exaggerated Devil Fruit? God. Doflamingo couldn't bear the astonishment in his heart, and looked up at Du Lin. Is it really a god? At this time, at the gate of the temple, a guy with a big head started to run unsteadily. God, good news. Vegapunk cheered happily, it has achieved results. Oh, Du Lin raised his eyebrows. I have something to do today, 2 more for the time being, and I owe 2 more tomorrow and pay it back the day after tomorrow. Chapter 247 Artificial Paramesha. Vegapunk. Doflamingo's eyes widened in astonishment. How did this guy show up here? Of course it is impossible for him not to know this world's #1 scientist. This guy has already been recruited by the world government a long time ago. But why did this guy appear in this place now, and kept yelling at the man in front of him God? Doflamingo couldn't help swallowing hard. This guy is really more terrifying than imagined. Successful. The corner of Du Lin's mouth has gradually raised, he looked at Vegapunk and asked with some expectation, the research on man-made devil fruit has made progress, right? That's right. Vegapunk nodded repeatedly. His huge head was shaking constantly. If it wasn't for his own strength, just the act of nodding would have already made him fall to the ground. Copy the technique of Paramesha Devil Fruit, now I have conquered it. What? Copy Devil Fruit, or even copy Paramesha Devil Fruit? Doflamingo tried hard to control his expression not to change. Is the Vegapunk guy even capable of doing something like this already? Devil Fruit has always been unique, even everyone can only eat one, now you tell me that this secret treasure in the sea can be copied through science and technology. Doflamingo was shocked. In this case, who else can stop the god of the sun? He can completely turn all the Sun Knights under his command into powerful ability users, forming an army of powerful ability users in the true sense. In that case, there is nothing in the sea that can stop them, except for the national treasure of celestial dragons in the hands of the world government, they are really invincible. Oh, it turns out that even without this technology, it is still invincible. That's fine. Doflamingo tried to calm himself down. Thinking about it from another angle, this is of course a good thing for him. After all, he is now also a member of the Sun God, and a part of this huge force. The brilliance of the sun will become more intense, and of course it is something to be happy about. Chat, I can't wait to see what this world looks like when the sun is shining. The bloodline factor of Paramesha Devil Fruit is much more difficult to reproduce than Zone. Vegapunk was happily explaining to Du Lin at this time. Du Lin nodded slightly to express his understanding. His scientific and technological attainments at this time may not be inferior to Vegapunk, of course he is very clear that the bloodline factor sequence of Zone Devil Fruit is completely different from that of Paramesha. Although it is a bit fruit discriminatory to say so, it is true, Zone Devil Fruit is the worst of all devil fruit varieties. Whether it is deciphering or replicating, the difficulty is the lowest. It's the same even for Phantom Beasts. Although the reproduction of Phantom Beasts is very complicated, it is only complicated. It's not that hard yet. Paramesha Devil Fruit came in second. The most difficult of course is Logia's Devil Fruit. That thing almost transformed the eater into another form of creature. It is still difficult to make the shape of a fruit like the copied Zone. Vegapunk reviewed the past research, even if the technology that has been integrated with the human body has been realized, it is still very unstable. It is easy to directly collapse the blood factor, and it is very likely to cause irreversible damage to the user, not to mention the effect. So, I changed my mind. Vegapunk smiled triumphantly, since it can't be done once and for all, why not think of a sustainable solution? He pulled out a test tube. The glass tube contains a green liquid. I call it green blood. Vegapunk laughed. This is the condensed blood factor, as long as it is injected into the body, it can give people the ability of devil fruit. It's just that the injection process is continuous, because as I said just now, green blood is a consumable. After the green blood injected into the body fails, the ability will disappear, and at this time it needs to be injected again. But the solution is also very simple, just connect the test tube to the body. The amount of green blood consumed by using the ability is very small, just one tube of reagent can support about 1 month's use. Dr. Dadu smiled. The most important thing is that the cost is very low, and it is very convenient to produce in large quantities. Doflamingo was shocked to hear it. Although there is no shock from directly copying Paramesha devil fruit as originally imagined, the technology displayed by Punk Punk at this time is quite amazing. Even, this external devil fruit may be more convenient to some extent. After all, this means that the user can completely change the abilities he possesses according to his own wishes. What kind of concept is this? And, another focus is obviously on high-volume production. Too exaggerated. At this time, Doflamingo was even more fortunate that he did not reject the proposal of the sun god just now. Following behind him, one can indeed see the world's highest peak scenery. Great. Dulin applauded lightly, then let's demonstrate quickly. Good. Vegapunk is in high spirits, and I have already prepared the candidates for the experiment, line 05. He shouted towards the rear, at the gate of the temple, Flame. Come in. A man with a blue airplane head came in reluctantly. Hurry up. But fortunately, Vegapunk didn't give him a chance to talk nonsense at all, and directly threw the precious reagent in his hand to him. Come and demonstrate it to God. Just like you did before. It looks like he was the one who was in charge of the experiment before. Dulin looked at him with great interest. Doflamingo and Enel also cast their eyes on him. Everyone is looking forward to what happens next. Flam took a deep breath, without looking at Dulin, picked up the injection, opened the cover, revealing the sharp needle point. The injection pierced into his arm fiercely. Then it was very interesting that 2 clips popped up from the top of the injection close to his arm and buckled directly on his arm, fixing the test tube. It's still very rudimentary. Vegapunk laughed, but these are small things, it's just that there are many ways to fix them. Dulin nodded slightly. He looked at Fram expectantly. Fram got used to it for a while, and then his expression became serious the next second. Then, he flew up. Oh, Dulin raised his eyebrows. Chapter 248 Mass Production. Don Quixote Family. Doflamingo couldn't help pushing the toad mirror on the bridge of his nose. Of course he wouldn't doubt that this man was demon fruit power before using the green blood. No matter how daring Vegapunk is, he probably wouldn't dare to deceive this god by telling such a lie that can be easily exposed. So there is only one possibility. That injection really gave this man the devil fruit ability to fly in the sky in an instant. Even though he was mentally prepared, Doflamingo couldn't help but change his expression slightly when he saw this scene with his own eyes. The horror in my heart could not be restrained from pouring out of my face. Great, really great technology, Dr. Vegapunk. The title of the world's #1 scientist is indeed not in vain. But what is this ability? The devil fruit ability to fly is very rare in the entire sea. And even most of it is Zone's devil fruit. When Doflamingo was curious, Flam's next actions immediately answered his questions. I saw this man with sea blue hair hovering slightly in the air, then immediately lowered his height and flew close to the ground, and touched the ground with his hand. The floor suddenly began to change shape. It surged and bulged, flew into the sky, and then twisted and collapsed to return to the original place. All changes were completed in the blink of an eye. Doflamingo froze for a moment. This ability, although he has never seen it with his own eyes. But the ability this guy displayed at this time is indeed very close to the ability possessed by a certain monster. How? God. When Fram fell to the ground quietly, Vegapunk smiled excitedly. The green blood created based on the lion fruit owned by the golden lion has such abilities. Sure enough, it is lion fruit. Of course, Doflamingo's heart was even more shocked. Of course, it is impossible for Golden Lion to honestly cooperate with Vegapunk for experiments. Even if he is an ally with this sun god, he will never allow this group of people to spy on the devil fruit ability he relies on. In particular, there is only one possibility, that is, that guy Golden Lion cannot help himself, and he simply cannot refuse to become a Vegapunk experimental guinea pig. Doflamingo smacks his lips secretly, who can get there? After escaping from prison 3 years ago, Golden Lion Shiki caused an uproar in the sea, and everyone was wondering where he went. As a result, it turned out to be like this. As long as the green blood is not exhausted, the ability of the lion fruit residing in Framban will not disappear. Vegapunk said, if there are any disadvantages, it is that if you want to switch to use different abilities, you have to wait until the green blood in your body is completely exhausted. Although it is not devil fruit, there will be conflicts between 2 different bloodline factor sequences, which is also fatal to the human body. Dulin nodded slightly. Very good. Of course it's very good. It was exactly what he had been waiting for. Compared to Zone Devil Fruit's army, certainly not Paramesh's is stronger. After all, there are too many abilities in Paramesha that can be called terrifying. Is mass production ready now? Dulin asked. Certainly. Vegapunk nodded without hesitation. You can start anytime. That would be great. Dulin lowered his head slightly to look at Doflamingo, who was looking at his eyes, nose, and heart, trying to minimize his sense of existence. Are you right, Dover? Doflamingo secretly groaned in his heart. After witnessing the effect of the injection in Vegapunk's hand just now, he guessed it would happen. After all, he and his cadres are almost all Paramesha demon fruit power. How could this god of the sun give up such good material so easily? Although this matter shouldn't cause much harm to him, but letting a group of people have the same ability as him, no matter how he thinks about it, it's still very annoying. However, there is no way to refuse. After accepting Du Lin's recruitment, Doflamingo understood a sad thing: he had lost the right to say no in front of this man. Of course he can only accept it. Certainly. Doflamingo tried not to let his smile show bitterness. Our abilities can be dedicated to you. Very good. Du Lin nodded slightly in satisfaction. There are still a few good ability users under that guy Doflamingo. Enel deliberately asked Enel to spare them and bring them back, except for wanting to subdue Doflamingo, that's why. But, he glanced at Doflamingo again, and said with a smile, you don't need to hand over your own abilities. If the abilities of the Knight of God are copied everywhere, it would be unreasonable. Moreover, the ability of string fruit is indeed useless. Doflamingo was slightly relieved. It's okay that his own abilities are not copied. Morning. Doflamingo nodded respectfully. Then, finally. Du Lin looked at Vegapunk again. Doctor, has the research on Phantom Beast and Lodia made any progress? Phantom Beast species can be copied long ago, but it still takes a lot of time. To be honest, the technical difficulty is not high. The only problem is that it is too complicated and lengthy. Vegapunk grimaced. As for Lodia, I still don't have a clue. That's it. Du Lin nodded. Then let's fully promote the replication of artificial devil fruits. There is no need to be thankless. Anyway, the pursuit is only quantity. Yes. Vegapunk bent over. After all the work was done, Doflamingo finally had a chance to breathe. Because there is no sea at all. How come? He left from the temple, looking for his family members who were thrown out of the temple by God when he came. They gathered together in a corner of the square, anxiously waiting for Doflamingo's return. Those guys refer to the Sun Knights guarding the square. It wasn't until he walked out of the gate of the temple and saw the vast blue sea of clouds in the distance that Doflamingo was startled. Hidden in the depths of this sky from the beginning. Doflamingo looked heavy, and then he nodded. It's actually in the sky. No wonder people on the sea have never had any sighting records. Frightened. Dover, what is the situation now? Doflamingo was soon joined by his family. After seeing Doflamingo, I felt that the backbone was back, and everyone quickly surrounded him. Diamante, whose face was painted with oil paint, couldn't wait to ask. His pale face full of serious injuries was full of anxiety. Those guys said you surrendered to that sun god, right? No wonder the world of governments couldn't find it no matter how hard they looked. Here is Sky Island. The guy who was injured by Enel before has also woken up because of a little healing. Chapter 249 Doflamingo's first experience of God's Night. How so? After hearing Doflamingo's answer, Diamante almost screamed, Dover. How can you bow your head to that man? You are the man who wants to become the pirate king, how can you just give up your ambition like this? Not only him, but Toribel and Pickup who were standing next to him also looked sad. Doflamingo is not only their young master, but also the sustenance of their ambitions. The four defeated dogs at the beginning knew that they could not climb to the top of the sea, so they chose to entrust their dreams to the born kings. Toripal, Diamante, Virgo, Press. After seeing Doflamingo cast Conqueror's Hockey for the first time, the four of them made up their minds to follow him to the top of the sea. It is no exaggeration to say that the existence of Doflamingo has been their sustenance in life. But now, that dream and ambition are shattered. Doflamingo gave up his dream and surrendered to someone. He can no longer reach the top of the sea. How could the three of Toribel not be sad? Doflamingo looked around at the family that surrounded him. The original family, Torre Pole, Diamante, Pickup. The elder who joined later, Rauji, Jola. 043 support the mainstay of the family, Mahabasi, Senor. Although they are still children, Gladius, Monet and Sugar will become important members of the family in the future. Even Doflamingo was touched by the disappointment in their eyes. He is a born villain, never takes other people's feelings seriously, and has never only followed his own wishes. But he also has feelings, for these family members who have been supporting him at all costs, of course he can't be as indifferent as a stone. It's impossible. Doflamingo couldn't smile anymore, he just shook his head. If I choose to refuse, then everyone will have to die here today. Oh no. Maybe the soldier won't die yet, but I'm afraid it's more uncomfortable than death. It can only be reduced to a guinea pig for Vegapunk experiments like Golden Lion. Everyone was silent. Just one Black Thunder Enel has beaten them to pieces, and their entire Don Quixote family has been wiped out with just a few gestures. And now that they are in the base camp of that group, how can they respond to the threat of the sun god? Shishi, there is no need to be so depressed. When everyone fell into depression, Doflamingo said with a smile, there is no doubt about the power possessed by the great sun god. Follow him, and all our ambitions in the past will be realized. The three of Toripal were stunned for a moment when they heard what he said. Then react immediately. Yes, that god of the sun possesses such great strength and power. He will climb to the top of the sea, that is a matter of course. Thinking about it this way, the loss in my heart immediately dissipated a little. After all, isn't that why Doflamingo was chosen in the first place? Well, Dover. Toribel scratched his head, and asked softly, all our foundations in North Blue, just give up like this. The Don Quixote family is not just these few cadres. The family has a huge industry and influence in North Blue, and they have their hands in both black and white. Come to Sky Island now, don't you just give up everything. Doflamingo was silent for a moment, then he said, I'll talk to God later. It is a bit reconciled to ask him to give up so much. After all, the power of the Don Quixote family can play an auxiliary role in the expansion and advancement of the Illuminati, right? Torre Pole nodded again and again. Don Quixote family can expand to the point where it is today, his efforts cannot be ignored. Are you finished? The voice came from behind. Doflamingo turned around, and Enel CJCD appeared here at some point. The man called Rayleigh, who was revered by the people in the sea, had a cold expression, drooping eyelids, and a look of impatience. She, is it Enel? Now that they have become companions, of course Doflamingo will not have any fears about the man in front of him. He said with a smile, is there any sign from God? God asked me to take you to where you live. Enel said coldly, by the way, I will show you around this island. Oh, thank you very much for that. Compared with Enel's coldness, Doflamingo's reaction can be called enthusiasm. Follow me. Leaving a word in a sarcastic manner, Enel turned and left. Doflamingo followed, laughing. Doflamingo looked around in amazement as he descended the staircase of clouds. Is it actually on top of a huge vine? It's amazing. The abode of the Knights of the Gods is on another layer of clouds below the level where the temple is located. Luxurious villas were built on this rather wide platform. This is the residence of the Sun Knights. But there is one thing to say, compared with my manor in North Blue, it is still far, far worse. Doflamingo measured these villas and silently commented in his heart. Oh, should I say accident or expectation? A guy who was also smiling flew over from a distance and landed lightly in front of him. Don Quixote Doflamingo, this should be the first time we have met. Enel said, this guy is very knowledgeable, and he is now a member of our God Knights. Of course. Torrebel called out the man's name in astonishment. Morgans grinned, I thought I would be killed by God after I came in handy. Doflamingo smiled heartily as well. Oh, are you already a member of the Knights of God? Are you a guy who knows how to get close? Doflamingo couldn't help showing a look of astonishment. Is this guy actually a member of the Knights of God? Another guy who didn't expect to be here at all. Morgans giggled, please teach me more after that, Dover. How could a world-renowned journalism giant, the president of the World Economic News, appear in this place? Morgans. The corners of Doflamingo's mouth turned up gradually. This is really, how many unknown surprises are waiting for them in the world government? Hey, it seems that it has successfully become our 10 skewers now. Knight of God, UB ************************** D, Chapter 250 gradually devout. It should be said that they are all doing business, and Doflamingo and Morgan soon had a good chat. That warm energy made outsiders think that the two of them were old friends whom they hadn't seen for many years. But in fact, this is the first time that they have met in a serious way. Doflamingo laughed loudly. It turned out that Morgans found my location. I explained that I hid it so well. Why did Enel come to the door directly? If it was you, it would be nothing. What a great feeling, show your ability. Ha, it's nothing. After all, this is God's order. Of course, I can only do my best to achieve it. Morgans also smiled. Dover, you won't blame me, will you? Of course he knew that if possible, the man in front of him would like to tear himself to pieces. After all, it was precisely because I found out his whereabouts that this series of events followed. But it doesn't matter. All the previous grievances have disappeared by now. In other words, it can only disappear. Hey, how could I blame you? My friend. Doflamingo said with a smile, it's too late for me to thank you. If it wasn't for you, how could I have joined the great god so quickly? Ha. She. The laughter of the two men rang out at this moment. Enel stood aside with a rather impatient expression on his face. He's not interested in listening to these two guys say such unnutritious things. Oh, is there a newcomer again? Another guy walked over with a smile. Doflamingo is certainly no stranger to him. Oh, Mr. Uroge, we meet again. Doflamingo greeted with a smile. We met before in Logue Town. Ha. We will all be companions from now on. Please take care of us. Uroge laughed. Next, Enel met almost all the Knights of God stationed on the island at this time. Fram, who leads the Sun Knights, and Kisara, a white dragon girl who has always followed God. And the world's most famous God Knight, the God-tier officer Mahad, who commands the Illuminati. These guys are stronger than each other, and Doflamingo reckons that the only ones he can defeat are Morgans, Vegapunk, who are not good at fighting, and Frame, a man who has not yet awakened his exclusive ability. After meeting the Knights of God, Doflamingo wanders the island with Enel. To be honest, there is really not much to do. This place can be regarded as prosperous, but compared with the islands in the sea that Brother Ming has seen, it is not enough. But the island above the Sea of Clouds is still somewhat special. Not to mention that there are several other islands around this island. Enel said that it was the island that the Golden Lion wanted to seize, but was later moved back by the gods. Doflamingo is a little hard to understand. What does it mean to move back? This is not a piece of furniture or a box of fruit, but a huge island. Golden Lion can indeed rely on his lion fruit to transport islands, but what about the god? Why is he? Enel didn't explain further, but Doflamingo was deeply in awe. He didn't realize that in such a short period of time, the position of the sun god in his heart had been rising in a straight line. With almost the same situation as Enel, there is also the king of Germa Kingdom, Vinsmoke Judge, who is far away in North Blue at this time. It has been several days since he came back from the sun god. During this time, Judge has never stepped out of his laboratory. He is frantically researching his body. He almost frantically wanted to find out the fire hidden in his body, and then pull out that thing. After all, that thing was the sword of Damocles hanging above his head. Although he was given the ability to manipulate flames, it was definitely the collar that the sun god used to restrain him. Although Judge fears the god of the sun, he doesn't want to lose his freedom just like that. He is the heir of the Vinsmoke family, and he wants to restore the glory of his ancestors, turn the entire North Blue into the inner sea of the family, and make the Vinsmoke family a man of the North Blue royal family again. How can someone wear a collar like this? In the laboratory, Judge's eye circles were already dark, and he hadn't slept for several days. He didn't even eat much, and spent all his energy and time on studying his body. But, damn it, how come? Judge angrily slapped the experimental platform in front of the user. His whole face became distorted. How could such a thing happen? Can't find it at all. Judge could clearly feel the flame in his heart right now. Even when he wants, he can mobilize the fire in his heart at any time and release a powerful flame. However, when he wanted to find the spark with experimental instruments, he couldn't find even the slightest clue. What the hell is going on? Judge scratched at his hair in annoyance. I don't understand. Even if it's devil fruit, it's just a product of the bloodline factor. How could nothing be found out? Should say, as expected of a god. Judge slowly slumped on the ground, and couldn't help sighing sincerely, what an amazing power. Because there was only one person in the laboratory, no one reminded him of the surprise and admiration on his face when he said these words. Judge was still completely unconscious, and when he tried his best to dispel the flame that the sun god planted in him, he had gradually begun to become devout to that god. I wish I could see him again. Judge stood up unsteadily, walked slowly to the door of the laboratory, opened the door and walked out. If only he could ask him what is going on with this magical flame. Quote. In the final analysis, if following that man's back and successfully conquering the North Blue, would that count as fulfilling the wishes of our ancestors? Judge was talking to himself. Since you can't find any results from the research, then don't study it at all. After all, that is the power of God. Chapter 251 Pluton Design. Doflamingo didn't stay long on the Isle of Gods. He's not about to just give up on his North Blue business. He explained this frankly to Du Lin. Although it may be insignificant to you, it is a foundation that I have spent more than 10 years building up day by day. At this moment, Doflamingo was able to kneel in front of Du Lin very freely and respectfully, without any dissatisfaction or resistance on his face, even deep in his heart. The high-level tinder, which is far more effective than ordinary tinder, has been rooted in his body for many days, and Doflamingo has undoubtedly devoted his allegiance to Du Lin from the bottom of his heart. It won't be of much use to stay here, so please, great God, allow me to return to North Blue. Doflamingo's words are very sincere. It's certainly not a problem. Du Lin answered him with a smile. No matter where the 250 is in the sea, it is just a short distance to me. Your generosity really shames me. Doflamingo sincerely said, even if it is very small, I think the power of the Don Quixote family under my command will help your career a little bit, so please let me dedicate my meager strength to you with all my strength. Quote. I look forward to it. Du Lin chuckled. The reason why he is willing to let Doflamingo go back is that apart from what Du Lin said just now, distance is not a problem for him at all, and there is another reason. The cadres under Doflamingo's command have also been planted for many years, and after several days, their loyalty has been guaranteed. So even if you put them back in the sea, there will be no problem. Don't worry about the location of God's Island being leaked, and don't worry about what little tricks these guys will do after they go back. Moreover, the blood factors of the cadres under Doflamingo have already been collected by Vegapunk. Their devil fruit can already be copied, so there is no need for them to stay here to cooperate with the experiment. Many thanks. With Doflamingo's solemn thanks, Du Lin directly used the Flying Thunder God technique, and sent him and all his ascendants back to North Blue. As for the transmitted coordinates, that group of giant snails still gallops across the North Blue waters today. Judge had already given up on the research on the flames in his body, and couldn't figure out why. What he didn't know was that although the fire seed given by Du Lin looked like a flame on the surface, in fact its body was the power of the soul. Rather than saying that the flame is deeply rooted in his body, it is better to say that it is planted in his soul. The science and technology he has mastered is not at all to the extent that he can touch the depths of the soul. Since he couldn't resist, Judge could only choose to lie flat. Lie down and think about it, and suddenly feel that the world is wide. Judge immediately felt that there was no longer any trouble. Today, he is eating with his wife and children. He and his wife have 5 children together. 1 sister and 4 brothers. These 5 children are the products of his technology of transforming people, and they are the ultimate weapons he created to realize his ambition. When transforming the elder sister, it was still in the experimental stage, but the 4 younger brothers were already mature creations. Judge waited for these children to grow up, and then went to fight for North Blue for him. He was right to think so. But a sudden encounter with the sun god changed all that. Now that I have chosen to lie flat, it seems that I no longer need to rely on these few. Aren't the sun god and his forces much stronger? As long as you rely on his strength, it should be very easy to take back North Blue. Judge watched his hungry sons and daughters as he ate. Transformers are born with extraordinary powers. Among the 5 children, the eldest sister is only 5 years old this year, and the 4 younger brothers are only 2 years old. However, the way they eat can be described as swift and violent, like wind and clouds the same swept all the food on the table. The energy they consume is also huge, so they need a lot of supplementary nutrition. But one of these children was special. The third boy with yellow hair, Sanji. He is different from the three brothers, he is still nestled in his mother's arms, looking very weak. If it was the past, Judge would feel angry just looking at this son. What he needs is a strong fighter, not a weak child. But now he gradually began to feel indifferent. There is God. That's when. There was no sign at all, no sound, no light and shadow, not even the wind. In the blink of an eye, a series of figures appeared directly beside Judge. 0. What? Judge, who was eating with a knife and fork, jumped up in shock. Who? Doflamingo, who suddenly appeared here, was also a little surprised. God did not tell him where he would be sent before sending him away. He didn't expect that he would appear directly in a certain family's restaurant. But immediately he recognized the screaming man. Hey, Vinsmoke Judge. Doflamingo smiled meaningfully. The existence of the Vinsmoke family may be a secret to ordinary people in North Blue, but to a guy as powerful as Doflamingo, there is no mystery at all. Since God sent them to this place, it only shows one thing. Doflamingo looked at the brilliant golden pupils in Judge's panicked eyes, the corners of his mouth were already raised high. There's no need to get excited. Doflamingo said leisurely. He raised his hand, took off the toad mirror on the bridge of his nose, and pointed to his own golden pupils, although this should be the first meeting, but now it should be a relationship of partners. Judge has also recognized Doflamingo's identity at this time. The great pirate of North Blue fame is certainly far from unknown. But what really surprised Judge was what Doflamingo said, and his almost identical pupils. 3.6 inches, aren't you also? Judge licked his lips. If not, that lord would not have sent us here. Doflamingo smiled comfortably, and even pulled out a chair and sat down. Next, we need to get along well. When they are having fun here, the island of gods. Is the mass production of green blood on the right track? Du Lin asked. That's right. Vegapunk nodded with a smile. It won't take long to see the results. Then, let's change the subject next. Du Lin threw Vegapunk a blueprint. Vegapunk caught it subconsciously, and then opened it to have a look. His eyes suddenly widened. God. He raised his head in horror. This is Pluton's blueprints. Chapter 252. Pluton starts work. Goal: the Fishman Island. There is no need to go further in the research of man-made devil fruit. Being able to copy Zone devil fruit and Paramesha devil fruit is completely enough for Du Lin. After all, these two kinds of devil fruit are what he intends to use to arm the Sun Knights under his command, and they are essentially for mass production. What you want is a simple and convenient one. However, the duplication time required for phantom beasts is too long, and no suitable solution has been found for the reproduction of Logia. Du Lin feels that there is no need to focus on this aspect anymore. Anyway, this guy Vegapunk has outstanding brain power. Even if these two subjects are just done as a hobby, the progress will not slow down much. As for the next thing he will mainly study, of course, is the design drawing of Pluton that Du Lin just handed over to him. This design drawing has been in Du Lin's hands for a long time, but it has never been put into practice. There are two main reasons. One is that some of the technologies recorded in the blueprints have been lost from the sea, and even an outstanding craftsman like Murloc Tom has not mastered them. Another more important reason is that many of the materials needed to make Pluton are simply not found in the sea, and even the materials have not been manufactured, so of course there is no way to talk about it. So the production of Pluton has been stranded in this way. Anyway, there are ready-made Plutons in this sea, just in Wano Kuni, and Du Lin is not in a hurry. But now Vegapunk is idle anyway, so Du Lin simply threw the blueprints to him, and asked him to try to find another way. In terms of technology, I will never question you, even if it is the shipbuilding technology that has been lost, I believe that you will be able to supplement them through your own research. Looking down at the Vegapunk below, Du Lin said leisurely, the key point is the material, try to see if you can find alternative materials. No problem. No problem. Vegapunk was trembling all over, he flipped through the blueprint in his hands almost like crazy. Oh. Amazing. Is this the technology of ancient people? It's really amazing. Energy. Oh. This is what I have been pursuing. Pluton, which can blast into an island with one shot, of course has the most terrifying energy system. As long as this energy system can be normalized, cheap energy that can be enjoyed by the whole world will appear. Vegapunk's lifelong dream is really just that. It is not to create the strongest war weapon, nor is it to deduce his technology to the point where there is no one before or after. It is unbelievable to say that Vegapunk's original dream was to change the situation of the motherland that has been frozen all year round. Then it gradually turned into hope that people all over the world can stay out of poverty and can show the use of cheap and clean energy. Although Vegapunk has never rejected some radical experiments, he has never been a mad scientist. He has a strong humanistic spirit. Leave it to me, God. Vegapunk closed the drawing in his hand, raised his head, and said brightly, I will let you see the result in the shortest possible time. Then leave it to you. Du Lin smiled and nodded. If there is no way to hand it over to Vegapunk, then you can only play by yourself. Du Lin hates trouble very much, and he never wants to do things that can be handled by his subordinates himself. Yes, Vegapunk left in a hurry, he couldn't wait to devote himself to the research. Watching his leaving back, Du Lin nodded lightly. With Vegapunk's technology, it shouldn't be too difficult to reproduce Pluton. However, just a Pluton should not be enough, right? There is no doubt that Wano Kuni's Pluton is what Joey Boye and others left behind. Back then, they had mastered the three ancient weapons with a high probability, and they still lost in front of the national treasure of celestial dragons. This shows that just a Pluton is not enough. At least, a second Pluton. In the past, Dulin hadn't been too anxious about this matter, but let bullet search it when Wano Kuni's rule expanded. After all, Wano Kuni's territory is quite vast, and no one knows where Pluton is hiding. I am afraid that the real location of Pluton can only be confirmed from the information left by Joey Poi and Roger after arriving at the final island. But now, Dulin felt that he should take the initiative a little more, instead of waiting silently. What Dulin means is that you can try to collect the historical text of the road signs and go to the final island. After all, the current situation in the sea is already obvious, and the pirates are considered insignificant to the current world situation. This sea is the duel between himself and I am. So get the Pluton in your hand sooner rather than later. There is only one road sign in Dulin's hand, which was found in Wano Kuni. But he also knew the whereabouts of the other two signposts. One piece is in the hands of Charlotte Linlin. But the problem is that those people have abandoned Wangguo now, and they don't know where they are wandering in New World. But that's okay. Behemoths like the Charlotte family can't be hidden, and it shouldn't take long for 397 to let the Morgans search carefully. The other stone was on the back of Zo, the giant elephant. The Elephant Lord also has no fixed place in New World and has never stopped walking, but it is even easier to find its traces. A gigantic elephant as large as an island roams the sea, and even the chaotic New World will never lack witnesses. These two stones are very easy to obtain. But the last piece of signposting is different. Is it still on the Fishman Island? Dulin thought so. The last signpost was originally stored on the Fishman Island, which is where Roger got it. But by the time Straw Hat Crew arrived on the island in the original game, the stone had disappeared. There is no mention of where it ended up in the original work, so Dulin certainly doesn't know the whereabouts of the stone. Of course, it is not certain that the stone is no longer on the Fishman Island. In short, go to the Fishman Island first. Dulin thought so. Well, it just so happens that I haven't left the Island of Gods for a long time, so let's go there to have fun. That island, and the people living on that island, are very beautiful. Chapter 253 Sabaody Archipelago. The solar boat set sail after a long absence. This big ship that can fly in the sky is the vehicle of a god, but because gods generally seldom leave the Island of Gods, the last time they went out, they were directly teleported there, so in fact, this ship has not left the dock for a long time past. Therefore, this big ship, which is obviously equipped with a weapon system and powerful weather weapons copied from the Pluton design, can only eat ashes on the Island of Gods under normal circumstances. This is the first time it has sailed in the sky in recent years. But fortunately, even though it has not set sail for such a long time, but because the maintenance work has been done very well, there is no problem at all to set sail again. Flying into the sky with the solar ship, there is also a big snake covered with blue patterns on its body. Hiss hiss. 3 pairs of flame wings spread out from behind the huge snake, supporting its huge body to move in the sky. Its huge mouth hooked into a human smile. As a god's mount, Quetzal also hasn't left the god's area for a long time. This time God took it with him when he traveled. The big ship is moving fast in the sky, and the sun is shining on the deck at the top of the big ship. Hiss hiss. Quetzal poked his head excitedly, sticking out his long tongue to lick its great master. Dulin was lazily leaning on the arms of several maids and flipping through the books in his hands. He slapped the big snake's head away with some disgust. Don't make trouble, go and play by yourself. Hiss hiss. The big snake happily twisted its body and swam into the distant clouds, shuttled back and forth in the white mist, cheerfully like a child. God, what does the Fishman Island look like? As cheerful as Quetzal, there was also the white dragon girl who showed a joyful smile in front of Dulin at this time. Dulin didn't bring many people with him on this trip. In addition to the group of maids who were in charge of serving him, the cadres did their best to bring Kisara and Enel. Coupled with 2 teams of Sun Knights and a group of God's Guards, this is the entire team that followed Dulin this time. The Fishman Island backquote. Dulin didn't look up, just smiled and said, that's the island where the Murlocs and Merfolk live, an island in the deep sea 10,000 meters below the sea surface. Hey, 10,000 meters below the surface of the sea. The very ignorant white dragon girl blinked her smart eyes. Is there an island in such a place? You'll know when you go. Dulin didn't explain much. If you talk too much, there will be no sense of mystery. Only when you really see it with your own eyes, will you feel the shock from the heart. Dulin himself is full of expectations for the beauty of the Fishman Island. The big ship moved forward rapidly, and within a few days, a towering red wall appeared in the clouds and mist ahead. The red line has arrived. Directly below so the solar boat began to slowly descend. Dulin looked at the wall of size towering into the clouds in front of him. Speaking of which, there is still no whereabouts of the 5 elders. Yes, God. Enel nodded slightly. Not even Mariajoy was rebuilt, and the 5 elders disappeared without a trace. Since the last time Dulin destroyed Mariajoy again, world government no longer regards it as the center of the government. Not even the thought of rebuilding that city. The 5 elders simply disappeared. According to the report of Stussy who returned to the CPO, the 5 elders hid in the dark to remotely control the world government, and they seem to want to play hide and seek with Dulin. Dulin is also completely understandable. After all, even the government center has been destroyed twice by himself. If they are still willing to stand on the bright side, it would be too ridiculous to let oneself completely take the initiative. Oh, by the way, speaking of Stussy. After the Battle of Sphinx Island, that guy lied that he was blown away by the aftermath of the battle, and then passed out. He didn't know what happened after that. He didn't contact the organization until he woke up after several twists and turns. Of course, the CPO did not doubt her, but the Battle of the Sphinx really caused the CPO to suffer too much damage, especially the cadres. The current situation is not much better than that of Marine. Anyway, Stussy was also a senior cadre of CP before, and there was no conclusive evidence, so in the end the CPO still didn't do anything to her, and even let her return to the CPO when she was no longer stationed outside the school. In a way, this is considered a promotion. The reason why she was relieved to let her go back was also very simple. Dulin and Stussy have been maintaining a very empty phone call. Once there is any risk, Stussy can be directly brought back to the Island of God by Dulin. So neither Stussy himself nor Dulin, of course, will not have any worries. However, although Stussy is now in a high position in the CPO, he still has no access to the whereabouts of the 5 elders and the celestial dragons. They seem to have completely disappeared from the sea, and no one knows their whereabouts. But it doesn't matter to Dulin, he didn't think about launching the final decisive battle with the world government in advance. What he always thought of was to wait for the development to the strongest stage and directly grind the world government into dust. The reason why he is looking for ancient weapon now is just to have a guarantee at this stage. An island made up of giant mangroves, the real end of the first half of the Grand Line. A ship that fell from the sky. God, the Sabaody archipelago has arrived. It seems that I haven't been to Sabaody archipelago yet. Below is the Sabaody archipelago. The world government is willing to play hide and seek with him. To be honest, Dulin is quite happy. Now that we are all here now, wouldn't it be a pity if we didn't go to this famous island in the original work to make a card? The people on the island below can already clearly see it. Dulin smiled and said, "It's a trip, how can we miss the scenery along the way? Isn't that great?" Dulin stood up and walked to the side of the boat. Enel said respectfully, "Do you want to land? Or go directly to the Fishman Island? Then go down and have a look." The solar ship continued to fall. People made sounds of astonishment. In addition to being able to see the sea, what you can also see is a lush Dujiaojiao island. What is that? The height of the solar ship is still slowly descending, and it has fallen from the clouds, and the sea surface below can be clearly seen. Chapter 254 Three Sisters. There is one thing to say, the solar ship is not well known in this world. Not all of the god's most loyal sun knights have seen this god's vehicle, let alone the people on this sea. In the town below, the people looking up at the sky in astonishment didn't realize where the ship came from even though they saw the sun emblem painted on the side of the big ship. It wasn't until a person with flame wings descended from the sky on the deck, waving a weapon made of flames to drive away the crowd below, that people didn't realize what was coming. Yes, the Sun Knight. This is the Sun Knight. Today, there are very few people on the sea who don't know the Sun Knight. Everyone knows that this group of people use flames as weapons, and they are the most loyal fighters under the command of the Sun God. They often flap their wings of flame, and bring down their flaming spears of destruction from the sky. Such obvious features are really hard for people not to recognize at a glance. The people watching below scattered in an instant. The Sun Knights are scary enough, let alone let the Sun Knights open the way at this time, and let the people they guard. At least he must be a Knight of God. A monster of that level is extremely dangerous just by approaching it. If you really provoke it, wouldn't it be courting death? Maybe, 950 and even the entire Sabaody archipelago will be unlucky. However, the identity of the person who came was even more exaggerated than people had guessed. The well-known Black Thunder Enel, who was the Knight of the Gods, turned into thunder and flashed down from the deck of the big ship that was docked on the ground. He looked around vigilantly, and cast a warning look at everyone who was watching from a distance. Everyone's breathing tightened. Even the Knights of the Gods have to be guards. There is probably only one person with this qualification. Only that. Well, it feels good. Surrounded by a group of beautiful women, an extremely handsome man in a white robe walked down from the deck. Was it actually the god of the sun who came in person? The people nearby trembled just seeing the man's appearance. The real monster is coming. Without any hesitation, the people around here who were still watching were desperately running away. This is a super monster that even the world government can't do anything about. Once they get involved, they will be crushed instantly. Dulin looked around at the scene around him. The solar ship landed on the outskirts of a bustling neighborhood, but at this moment the neighborhood was in chaos, and everyone was fleeing in the opposite direction. Beyond this block, what Dulin sees are huge mangrove trees. There are numbers written on them, and the entire Sabaody archipelago is supported by such trees. So strictly speaking, whether it is a needle or a permanent pointer, it is impossible to find this reason. It's just that it is just above the Fishman Island. When you want to go to the Fishman Island through the pointer, you can't avoid it. Oh, so beautiful. Kisara raised her head in amazement. It is indeed a very beautiful scene, the colorful bubbles of light reflected in the sun are flying in the sky. It's just a dreamlike scene. Let's go. I don't have much time, just take a stroll. Dulin stepped forward. If you stay on the island for too long, the national treasure of celestial dragons may be coming. Dulin doesn't want this beautiful journey to be disturbed. But they said they wanted to go shopping, but there was actually nothing to do. Wherever Dulin and his party went, everyone was running away crazily. Whether it is ordinary people or pirates who came to this island. Dulin didn't even meet a daring hoarder who tried to take his head off to make a name for himself. You must know that when Kizaru, who has become admiral in the original work, came to this island. There were idiots who wanted to kill him and become famous all over the world. Without people, the town naturally has nothing to do. Even the world-renowned amusement park, Sabaody Paradise, all the equipment has been completely shut down. But it doesn't matter to Du Lin, the natural scenery of this island is already quite good. Not to mention, God. While Du Lin was strolling leisurely, Enel suddenly said, "Some guy you may be familiar with is on this island, and he knows we're coming." Du Lin nodded slightly. "Well, Confronting Rayleigh, that guy came to this island after the Roger Pirates disbanded, and he hasn't left since. Leave him alone for now." Du Lin said casually, "If he doesn't come to us, then we will go to him. The remnants of the Roger Pirates still need to be dealt with. After all, they know the location of their headquarters." Yes, Enel nodded. At the same time, another place in the Sabaody archipelago, in a tavern on a hillside. "Old Lay, are you really not going to say hello?" The woman standing at the bar counter wiping the wine glass said with a smile, "Didn't you often brag to me before that you had a relationship with that sun god? It's not just as simple as a one-sided relationship." Sitting on Karakura in front of the bar, the man with gray hair and gold-rimmed glasses shook his head lightly. To some extent, Roger is still the teacher of the sun god. Teacher. The woman was taken aback. Yes. The man, the former deputy captain of the Roger Pirates, known as Confronting Rayleigh, shook his head lightly. He couldn't help but think back to the time when they landed on Sky Island and met that boy. Even thinking about it now, I still can't help being amazed. What a terrifying hockey talent that is. Just a simple fight with Roger, and he directly mastered the final escape of the two-color hockey. It is precisely because of this talent that he is able to become the god of the sun who now overwhelms the whole world. In that case, why not go and meet him? Because we are not friends. The Odin thing. Even though I'm retired now, I can't pretend that nothing happened, can I? Or don't bother yourself. Rayleigh thought so. But what he didn't expect was that he wasn't going to go there, but God was going to come over. Du Lin is still hanging out on the island. He passed a building with a strange shape, which seemed to be a meeting place. At this time, there was a lot of people here, and a group of people were rushing out of the door like crazy, probably knowing the news of their arrival. There seemed to be a little commotion in the crowd, with cursing and roaring. It was a group of guys with handcuffs on their hands, shackles on their feet, and collars inlaid around their necks. They were being driven forward by several other vicious guys brandishing whips. Du Lin raised his eyebrows. He noticed. Among the group, there were 3 girls. A girl with yellow hair and a girl with green hair. 2 poor little girls leaned on the arms of another black-haired girl. The black-haired girl's face is still immature, but she has already revealed a shocking beauty. It seems to be the appearance of 3 sisters. Oh. Could it be that? Chapter 255 Hancock meets God. The black-haired girl hugged her 2 crying sisters tightly. She turned sideways and used her slender back to meet the whip that kept coming from behind. When the long leather whip was whipped on the back, it made a crackling sound, and the clothes were about to be torn. Don't think about it, blood must have flowed from the back. But the girl clenched her teeth and remained silent. Boa Hancock is 12 years old this year. She is from a country called Amazon Lily. This country built on an island called 9 Snakes is the legendary daughter country. There are no men in the country, all the staff are women. Such a country will naturally welcome countless coveted people in this chaotic world. But fortunately, Amazon Lily has 2 strongest guardians. The first guardian is the penultimate geography they are in. The place where Amazon Lily is located is the calm belt, which cannot be sailed by ordinary sailboats, let alone the lair of sea kings. Neither pirates nor marines can approach it at all. This alone almost predestined Amazon Lily to be able to enjoy a peaceful life in this chaotic era. However, this geographical advantage alone is still not enough. In the calm belt, Amazon Lily can certainly protect the natural barrier against the invasion of foreign enemies, but relatively speaking, they are also blocked in this sea area, unable to contact the outside world at all, and many supplies are completely unable to be self-sufficient. At this time, they can only rely on their second guardian, an organization called the 9 Snake Pirates. In addition to being a daughter country, Amazon Lily has the most special place, where hockey is prevalent, and almost all warriors have mastered the power called hockey. So of course, the 9 Snake Pirates formed by these hockey fighters are also of extraordinary strength. Almost every captain of the 9 Snake Pirates is a big pirate with a reward of hundreds of millions of ranks. That is, the pirate ship is a huge problem for the government, but for Amazon Lily, it is a bridge for them to communicate with the outside world. The pirates of the pirate group go out to sea to plunder, and then bring back various supplies necessary for the lives of the people. Amazon Lily has come here for hundreds of years. So of course, joining the 9 Snake Pirates is what the soldiers on the island desire most, and it is the greatest honor. Although Hancock is only 12 years old this year, he has already shown extraordinary talent. So when the pirates set sail before, she was able to take his 2 younger sisters with him. Originally, I wanted to see the beautiful sea with my sisters, but I didn't expect the disaster to come so suddenly. The 3 sisters met traffickers. It was a group of guys with extraordinary strength. They even took the 3 sisters abducted from the ship of the 9 Snake Pirates when the defense on the ship was lax. Hancock and his 2 sisters became slaves in this way. They also tried to resist, but their strength was no match for the group of traffickers. If it weren't for the human traffickers who saw Hancock's amazing appearance, they would definitely be able to sell it for a high price, so they had no idea of hurting her at all, and the three sisters didn't know what kind of torture they would encounter. But even so, when he was sent to the auction house today, Hancock was already full of despair. She doesn't know what her future holds. However, an unexpected situation happened. It seemed that some incredible guy had come to this island auction house, and everyone started to run away. Even the traffickers who brought them here hurriedly took them and other slaves to escape. But it's too crowded to walk fast at all. The annoyed trafficker directly waved the long whip in his hand, ignoring the fact that Hancock's delicate body could not suffer any trauma. He whipped the slaves severely and drove them away quickly. Hancock gritted his teeth. All she could do was hug her two younger sisters tightly. But it is this time. Laugh. Dazzling light flew over. In Hancock's astonished eyes, rays of light directly penetrated the bodies of the traffickers behind. The traffickers who were still waving their whips with ferocious faces 1 second, their bodies were already burning and turned into ashes in the blink of an eye in the next second. Hancock's red lips parted slightly. Here, what happened? The already flustered crowd exploded at this moment, as if a bomb had been thrown. 0 for flowers. The people who couldn't escape could only knelt on the ground trembling at this moment, welcoming the man who was walking slowly. Du Lin walked forward, and the crowd automatically parted for him. He walked up to the black-haired girl who was still desperately hugging her two younger sisters. What's your name? Straightforward, without any foreshadowing. God Du Lin focuses on simplicity and directness. Although he is 70% to 80% sure, Du Lin still feels that he should confirm it in the end. The little black-haired girl looked up at Du Lin in a daze. Is this big brother asking himself? The flames spilled from his body and landed on himself. Hancock felt the warmth and comfort that he had not seen for a long time. 0. It feels like my heart is warming up. Hancock. The girl summoned up her courage and said loudly, my name is Boa Hancock. Du Lin nodded slightly. It really was her. The world's #1 beauty in the future, 7 warlords of the sea, One Piece, Boa Hancock. Calculating the time, she was indeed abducted by traffickers this year. However, in the original work, this girl was bought by celestial dragons, leaving a lifetime of psychological shadows ever since. But now Mariajoy has been destroyed by himself, and the celestial dragons don't know where they went. If she hadn't met her by such a coincidence here today, then I really don't know where she would be sold. Follow me. Du Lin flicked his finger. Flames splashed from his fingertips and landed directly on the shackles and collars of the three sisters. The high-level hockey infused in the flames directly destroyed all the shackle collars, and while falling, the flames burned them away. The girl noticed the change on her body. She lowered her head in surprise and looked at her wrist and ankle. All the things that bound her and kept her from being free are gone now. She couldn't help but raised her head and looked at the handsome big brother in front of her. Just follow my back and no one can hurt you. Du Lin put it this way, I will grant you freedom and peace. Hancock's eye circles were a little rosy. Chapter 256 Goodbye Rayleigh. Du Lin is still wandering around the island leisurely. The Sabaody archipelago has become a lot more chaotic after the destruction of Marindo. Losing the deterrence of naval headquarters, a large number of pirates flooded the island. So Marine also added troops here, just to prevent the situation on the island from getting out of control. But when Du Lin wandered around the island, he didn't see either pirates or Marines. This is also a matter of course, which pirate or Marine would dare to appear in front of him. Hang out, as always. Only this time, there were 3 little girls in the queue behind him. Hancock's 2 younger sisters are named Sandersonia and Marigold. Sandersonia, the second of 3 sisters, is a green-haired girl with a rather round face. Marigold is a girl with yellow hair, the third child of the third sister, 343. In terms of appearance, she is much better looking than the second sister, but of course, she is far inferior to the eldest sister Hancock. The 2 younger sisters were quite timid. At this time, they followed the elder sisters back and stretched out their hands to hold the elder sister's hand. They lowered their heads and said nothing. Compared with them, Hancock as the eldest sister is much bolder. She almost dragged her 2 younger sisters forward, walking hard on Du Lin's side with her short legs, tilting her head and looking up at him. Are you really going to send us back to Amazon Lily? She asked. This is the promise Du Lin made to them just now. Shut up. When he asked this sentence, Enel's brows were already furrowed, and he immediately scolded, who do you think you are talking to? No one in the world can question God. Well, Hancock shrank his neck a little bit, not daring to look at Enel. After all, at this time he is still under the fence. Although Hancock is young, he still understands this point. After all, his character is far less distorted than in the original work. God never lies. Du Lin said calmly, it's easy to send you back, but you have to become a knight under my command, so you have to go with us when you go back. Hancock paused slightly. This big brother is of course very good looking, and he saved the 3 sisters from the hands of human traffickers, of course she is extremely grateful in her heart. However, to let her leave her hometown. Little Hancock frowned, and his beautiful eyebrows became caterpillars. All right, she finally made up her mind, and nodded vigorously with a bitter face, as long as I can send Mary and Sonia back to Nine Snake Island, I will go with you. Elder sister. No, Sister Hancock. The 2 younger sisters were already crying, and they were shaking while holding their elder sister's hand. We don't want to part with you. Mary, Sonia. Hancock also had tears in her eyes, and she turned around and put her arms around her 2 younger sisters. My sister is also reluctant to part with you, but this is what my sister should do. Wow. The three sisters hugged each other and cried together. The corner of Du Lin's mouth hooked slightly. There is no need to be so excited. Although there is indeed a considerable distance between the Island of the Gods and Amazon Lily, even if Hancock went to the Island of the Gods, returning to Amazon Lily was nothing more than a thought on his mind. Haha, they are really interesting. Kisara came to Du Lin's side, and said with a smile, God, you think so too, don't you? Du Lin nodded with a smile. Of course it's fun. The current Hancock is completely different from the arrogant pirate emperor in the original. Cheerful, so cute. It's time to find that guy. Du Lin stretched himself. It's almost time to wander around. Quizzle. Du Lin shouted softly towards the sky. In the next second, the big snake fell from the sky, passed through the treetops, and landed in front of Du Lin with respect. #FT. Hancock couldn't even bother to cry at this moment, his eyes widened, and he looked at the big snake falling from the sky in amazement. It's a snake. It's the same as 9 snakes. The 9 snake pirates also have a method of taming giant sea snakes, which is the key to the 9 snake pirates being able to travel freely with calm belt. Let's go. Du Lin walked slowly onto Quetzal's head. Hancock jumped and hurried to follow. Okay, that's great. She stomped the skin on Quetzal's head in amazement, then knelt down and stroked it curiously. Oh, it can still fly. When Quetzal flapped his wings of flame and flew into the sky, Hancock's eyes were about to burst into stars. 0. This is so powerful that even the snakes of the 9 snake pirates can only swim on the surface of the sea, and cannot fly into the sky at all. This way. Du Lin stepped on Quetzal's head to guide him. Hiss hiss. The big snake responded cheerfully, and flew towards the direction Du Lin pointed with a grunt. After flying some distance over the Sabaody archipelago, Quetzal plunged headlong into the treetops. Quetzal, who passed through the treetops, landed slowly. Its head hangs low, and in front of it is the small tavern on the hillside. Du Lin stepped off Quetzal's head, came to the front of the tavern, pushed open the door of the tavern, and walked in. Welcome, guest. The woman was leaning on the counter, with a lit cigarette in her mouth. She took the cigarette off with her slender fingers, and gently shook the ash accumulated on it. Slightly lazy eyes stared at Du Lin, who stepped in. Well, should I say that? It's been a long time since anyone called that name. This question shouldn't be asked of me. So choose. I almost didn't react. It turned out that I was calling myself. Sitting on the chair in front of the bar, the man who was drinking silently turned around. No matter what, we finally meet again, brother Du Lin. Hancock, who walked in through the door following Du Lin, looked at Du Lin's back. Rayleigh sighed softly, and had already put down the wine glass in his hand. The lightning condensed in front of Du Lin, and Enel was furious. How dare you call God's name directly? Du Lin didn't care much about this kind of thing. Rayleigh, I hate trouble, but you know, your existence is a trouble to me. Was it originally called Du Lin? Du Lin felt a little weird. It's amazing, this feeling. Du Lin. Oh, sorry. Bold. Rayleigh laughed. Isn't that what you should be called now? God of the Sun. It doesn't matter. It has been so long that 4.1 is my name, but it sounds strange and strange. Chapter 257 Pluton and the Gods. Du Lin's expression was very calm. Now it's Rayleigh's turn to make one of the most important decisions of his life. The atmosphere in the tavern suddenly became dignified, and the woman standing at the bar, smoking quietly, couldn't help but stubbed out the cigarette in her hand. Her calm eyes, which were originally lazy, became fierce in the blink of an eye. More than 20 years ago, a woman who was also galloping in the sea as a sea would certainly not be a good person. Let me make a choice. Rayleigh pushed his glasses helplessly. I have retired a long time ago, and the disturbances at sea have nothing to do with me. 11. If you don't come to me, I should die of old age in obscurity on this island. Du Lin's expression didn't change at all. He just flicked his sleeves casually. Trust is a very precious thing, even I can't entrust it to anyone at will. Pluton Rayleigh, this is certainly not a man to be trusted. Oh, one, this is not to say that this man is inferior and unworthy of any trust. It's just because the two sides are not in the same camp. Du Lin doesn't believe that he will keep the secret for himself at all. Rayleigh could only sigh helplessly. What's your answer, Rayleigh? Du Lin looked at the old Rayleigh quietly. Will I trust you completely, or let me get complete peace of mind? What is total peace of mind? Rayleigh thought so. Of course, if you don't have to worry about revealing his secrets, then of course you will end your life. Old Ray. The woman named Shaki kicked the bar counter in front of her, and her slender fingers were covered with black hockey. Even, the invisible courage has begun to stir up. But Du Lin didn't even glance at her. This woman is extraordinary both in terms of status and strength. If the current captain of the 9 snake pirates, the king of the 9 snake kingdom, came here to see her, he would be very angry in an instant. This woman is the former king of the 9 snake kingdom who gave up the position of king a long time ago, and she is also the former captain of the 9 snake pirates. Strictly speaking, the relationship with Hancock is very close. But of course it doesn't mean anything to Du Lin. Coming to Rayleigh was just incidental. If you don't happen to want to go to the Fishman Island, it is enough to send 2 subordinates to Rayleigh Du Lin if you want to solve it. Die. The left and right hands of One Piece sighed leisurely, and finally stood up from the seat. The man with completely gray hair turned his head and looked at Du Lin solemnly. Odin, how did he die? This incident is still unforgettable. The companions who sailed together did not even see him for the last time, and all they could hear was the news of his death. Du Lin also didn't mean to hide. You should know that Wano Kuni is special, and if I want to take over that country, I have to get rid of Kaido, and then eradicate Ren who is unwilling to surrender. Rayleigh's expression changed slightly. Does this man actually know something special about Wano Kuni? Although Kazuki Oden was not killed by me, he was indeed killed by my subordinates. Du Lin was very frank. Kisara, who had followed Du Lin into the tavern before, nodded repeatedly, and pointed at her fair cheeks with a smile. It was Bullet and I who killed it. Bullet. Rayleigh pursed his lips. After knowing that Wano Kuni was occupied by Bullet, he almost guessed it. But no matter what, I still feel a little uncomfortable in my heart. Whether it is Bullet or Oden, they were once sailing partners with laughter and laughter. You don't have to worry too much about it. Du Lin said. Oden is the only one who died, and his family members are still alive. Even Tianyushi is working as a maid under my hands now. This is not something to be happy about. Rayleigh said quietly again. So apart from me, are the other members of the Roger Pirates also your targets? Du Lin nodded slightly. It doesn't make sense, because you are the deputy head, so treat them differently. That's really impossible. Rayleigh walked slowly to the side of the tavern and drew a sword from under the broken bar. God. Enel volunteered for the first time. Chi-Shala had also jumped in front of Du Lin. Her big eyes were glowing faintly. Both of them couldn't wait to face this powerful enemy for the sake of God. Du Lin shook his head. He looks at Rayleigh. Rayleigh was slowly drawing the sword out of its sheath. Let me see, God of the Sun, what kind of calendar you have today. As early as when we first met, Roger said that this guy has the power to almost destroy Roger's pirates. So now, after he has been called the God of the Sun, what level has his power evolved to? It doesn't matter if it's me, but I can't allow other partners to be threatened by this guy. The pitch black hockey was already wrapped around the blade, and jumping black lightning began to fly in midair. As the deputy captain of the Roger Pirates, a man called Pluton, Rayleigh naturally also mastered the 480 Conqueror's winding skills. I'm here to help too. Shaki took 2 steps forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Rayleigh. Du Lin just looked at them calmly. Then, let's fight side by side after a long absence. Rayleigh smiled heartily, and in the next second, he appeared directly in front of Du Lin like lightning. So fast, even a thunder fruit capable user, Enel, who can move like lightning, couldn't help but exclaim in his heart at this time. Are you using hockey? Condensate hockey at the feet and boost your speed with instant bursts. The pitch black long sword tore through the air and slashed towards Du Lin with the force of wind and thunder. Even though he has recuperated in Sabaody's archipelago for several years, Pluton Rayleigh is still the vice captain of the Roger Pirates galloping the sea. Even the space seems to be cut off by this sword. But, the broken space suddenly stopped. Du Lin raised his right hand, put his 4 fingers together, and squeezed his thumb slightly upwards. Clamped the black blade that Rayleigh slashed. No way. Even Pluton Rayleigh, who has experienced many battles, couldn't help being dumbfounded at this time. There is such a thing. It's too strong. Even Roger and Whitebeard can't do this kind of thing. Chapter 258. Pluton's Endgame. Rayleigh never thought of himself as the strongest. If you want to say the strongest, it must be Roger and Newgate, of course, and maybe an old Garp. The strength of these 3 guys was so unrivaled in that era. Even Golden Lion Sengoku, who can stand shoulder to shoulder with them, is actually half a body behind them. But even so, Rayleigh never felt that he was far behind them. He never feels arrogant because of his own strength, but of course he never despises himself because of it. That's why he felt such a shock at this moment. How could such a thing happen? How could someone be able to catch his slash with bare hands? He didn't even use hockey, and his arm didn't even tremble when his white palm clamped his blade. So easy, so comfortable, so easy. This is absolutely overwhelming power. While Rayleigh was dumbfounded, Du Lin didn't respond. All the talents of his body have already been fully utilized. Counting from the time when he was 10 years old, he is already 18 years old this year. He is an adult, his body has developed to maturity, and his various qualities have already surpassed the limits of human beings. Not to mention his ability to pull the pterosaur form, allowing him to continuously strengthen himself while basking in the sun. After so many years in the sun on the Island of Gods, of course it was not for nothing. Even if other abilities are not counted, Du Lin is already a real powerhouse beyond the limit based on his body alone. Rely on the reaction to see the trajectory of the blade attack, use the strength to pinch the amazingly powerful blade, and use the defense to block the hockey that destroys a certain amount. It's that simple. Old Lei, what are you surprised about? At this time, Shaki was much calmer. She jumped up in the air and kicked Du Lin. Forehead. She kicked onto the flame that appeared out of thin air, and her whole body was thrown out, screaming in pain. The flame spread from her legs. Shaki. Rayleigh pulled out his sword vigorously, and Du Lin also let go of his hand very cooperatively, watching Rayleigh take 2 steps back calmly, stabbing straight with the sword in both hands. Rayleigh is like lightning, and his sword is a ray of light from the birth of that lightning. 1 second he had just drawn out his sword, and the next second the tip of the sword was already in front of Du Lin's throat. Du Lin just tilted his head slightly. The tip of the sword brushed past his neck. At the same time, behind Du Lin, the wall of the tavern shattered, invisible fluctuations spread outward, and even a big mangrove tree in the distance was directly penetrated. Wow, it's amazing. Hancock, who didn't understand what was going on at all, was just deeply shocked by the powerful power that Rayleigh showed in every gesture. Is this guy a bit too strong? After getting rid of the flames that entangled her, Shaki's proprietress shot again. What greeted her was Du Lin's raised left index finger. Blue flame pendant. Golden flames burst from Du Lin's fingertips. It was just a small spot of light at first, but in the blink of an eye, it swelled to a place even far larger than this tavern, and the tavern was directly torn to pieces. Shaki couldn't dodge at all, and was swallowed by the flames in the next second, and then flew out along with it. Shaki. Rayleigh's face turned anxious for the first time. His relationship with Shaki is still delicate. Rest assured. Du Lin said calmly, the power of this move is very weak, it won't kill you. After all, the Kangwo pendant is only the number 33 Hado, and its power is still very limited. Well, thank you so much. In the next moment, Du Lin was completely wrapped up by the storm of blades. The remaining walls of the tavern behind him turned to dust in the blink of an eye. Countless slashes directly cut the wall to such a degree that it was difficult to observe with the naked eye. But, ding ding ding, Du Lin also held the sword in his hand, and a flaming sword condensed in his hand, covered with haki, was equally indestructible. He was just defending against Rayleigh's attack, no matter how fast the speed was, no matter how tricky the angle was, no matter how amazing the force was, Du Lin still just counterattacked calmly. Rayleigh's all-out slash couldn't even move his body back a step. It's too bad. Sarah folded her arms around her chest a little old-fashioned, shaking her head and sighing. Enel just sneered. How could this guy be God's opponent? It's not a dimensional confrontation at all. Rayleigh gritted his teeth secretly. This guy is really exaggerating. No match at all. That's it. Is that so? Du Lin swung his sword with a little force, and after another sword collision, Rayleigh was even thrown backwards, and 2 deep ravines were drawn on the ground by his feet. Backquote. Then, let's take a look at my swordsmanship. Quote. Du Lin tapped the ground lightly with his toes, and his body was already being bullied like a ghost. Too fast. Even when his blade fell, Rayleigh quickly raised his sword to block with his pupils constricted. Boom. The ground was instantly blasted with a huge crack, and the soil accumulated on the roots of the mangrove tree was directly blasted through, and the turbulent seawater appeared below, and the crack spread directly to the end of the line of sight, even killing the huge mangrove trees in front of them directly. Split. Rayleigh was sent flying again. Before he could balance his body, Du Lin's slash had come again. This time it was Rayleigh who was covered by the storm. What a terrible power. Rayleigh's face was already flushed, and the veins on his forehead almost tore the skin. This sword technique is too familiar. This is obviously his own swordsmanship. Now it's turned around and used against myself. Rayleigh was amazed by Du Lin's ability to learn. De Nuo Jiao, if you only have this level, then this battle will come to an end. The flames on the flame sword instantly exploded, and the pitch black haki dyed the flames black. Du Lin swung his sword. The name of this sword is God Avoids. The pitch black flame instantly drew an arc in the air. The arc passed through the sword in Rayleigh's hand and across his chest. Pluton's body flew upside down like a cannonball. At the current speed, it is a matter of course to go directly through the Sabaody archipelago and fly into the depths of the sea. So at this time Du Lin raised his left hand. 6 feet of light prison. The 6 rays of light that appeared out of nowhere directly bound Rayleigh's body in midair. He couldn't fly forward. Wow. Until this moment, Rayleigh spurted a big mouthful of blood from his mouth. The battle is over. Chapter 259 The Fishman Island. It's actually divine avoidance. Rayleigh, who was bound by the 6-stick light prison, was spitting blood, and he was weakly exclaiming. Of course he will not forget his old friend's proud moves. I just didn't expect that one day this move would be used against him. The blow has undoubtedly hit Rayleigh hard. The flame and haki have been perfectly fused together, turned into a shock wave, and even directly penetrated Rayleigh's body, causing him to suffer the shock from the inside out. But if you want to kill Rayleigh just like this, you still look down on this Pluton too much. Du Lin's strength has far surpassed the top powerhouses in the sea, but if he wants to kill these guys in seconds, he has to be serious. But now there is a reason for deliberately keeping this guy alive. Du Lin suddenly thought of one thing. A pretty important thing. He wants to go to the end until it seems that there is no need to bother to collect the 4 road sign history texts. Didn't the Roger pirates successfully reach that island? The Pluton Rayleigh in front of him was a witness of that great voyage. There is even no need to go to that island at all. If you want to know what is there on that island, you only need to ask the man in front of you. I also don't know the monsters whose target is One Piece in the original work. Why didn't I think of this? Even if you can't go to trouble with Pluton Rayleigh, wouldn't it be nice to go to trouble with the rest of the Roger pirates? Even the Roger pirates cannot all have extraordinary power. Even if they hide well, as long as they are willing to spend some more time, it is impossible not to find any clues. After all, that guy Crocus has even been swaggering around the mouth of the Grand Line. Really, such a simple thing, why have I never thought of it before? Have you also been infected by this sea? The Twin Gorges have long been controlled by the Sun Knights, and if nothing else happens, that guy Crocus has also been controlled now. Looking at it this way, it seems that it is indeed unnecessary to collect red historical texts. Du Lin hooked his hands, and Rayleigh floated over with the 6-branch light prison bound. I have a question, can you answer me, Rayleigh? Du Lin asked. Where is the final island? What is there on it? Rayleigh looked up. his face smeared with blood. However, he was smiling, so you are also interested in that place. But no, even in the current situation, the right-hand man of One Piece still replied, that place is the last hope of this world and the most crucial area of force to change this world. It shouldn't be for you. That's it. Du Lin nodded knowingly, then I have no problem. He raised his right hand, and he pulled out the dead branch like Excalibur from the void. At the same time, the blade in Rayleigh's hand flew upwards. He has not lost his ability to fight yet, and he is not prepared to just close his eyes and wait for death. But, one knife cremation. Flame. In an instant, the flames soared into the sky. Du Lin combines slash and hado. Golden flames surged upwards, turning into the shape of a huge blade. This blade is so huge, starting from Du Lin, it even spreads directly into the sea. Rayleigh and the woman who was hit by Du Lin just now were affected by the blade of the flame at the same time. Then, of course, it was destroyed. Okay, that's great. Hancock's little hand clenched his fist, and he couldn't close his mouth at all. It's too powerful, this god is really too powerful. Much stronger than the captains of their 9 snake pirates. The blade of the flame gradually dissipated, Du Lin let go of his hand, and Leviathan returned to its equipment space. Du Lin nodded in satisfaction. Abba, it's a good combination of taijutsu and hado. In the original, Shihuan Yoruichi combines Kido and white hits, which is her housekeeping stunt. Du Lin, on the other hand, turned taijutsu into a Kido launcher. Yoruichi is to enhance white hits, while Du Lin is to enhance Kido. Looking at it now, this approach is not bad. Du Lin looked forward. Ahead of him was a piece of hell on earth. The one knife cremation just now completely melted the large linear area in front of it, the ground turned into lava, and the huge mangrove tree was burned to the ground. From this we can see what will happen to the unfortunate people who are affected. Overreaching. Enel snorted disdainfully. You dared to challenge God, and now you are directly burned to ashes, which is what you deserve. Let's go. Go to the Fishman Island. Du Lin said. There is no need to continue to delay on this island. Stay a little longer, and I am and his ultimate weapon may be on the way. Yes. The solar boat set sail again. Fly under the sky, onto the surface of the sea beyond the Sabaody archipelago, and sink straight down. Although it is a ship flying in the sky, it is not difficult to install a diving system on it. But since Du Lin is on this ship, this is unnecessary. When the big ship was about to fall on the sea, the flames spread out. The flame fell on the sea, and the sea surface instantly sank, and then a huge gap opened. This is the power to dominate. Du Lin dominated the sea, allowing him to carve out a path to the bottom of the sea for himself. The sea is split. Hancock was dumbfounded again. What is this? This is the power of God. Chi Sarah said a little braggingly. God's power. Hancock stared blankly at Du Lin's back. The big ship went all the way down, heading towards deeper seabed. To be honest, the distance of 10,000 meters is not too far, and soon the solar ship has arrived in this dark deep sea. But it's not completely dark at this time. After all, the blazing flames are separating the seawater to expose the space where the solar ship can fly freely. They also illuminate the deep sea by the way. It is clearly visible that there are countless behemoths in the surrounding deep sea that are constantly wandering. But none of them dared to approach this side at all. So, at the depth of the seabed 10,000 meters below this seabed, the solar ship moved forward all the way. All the way to the bottom of the red line, into the big hole in the seabed. Not far ahead, the bottom of the sea suddenly became brighter. The light fell from above, all the way down, illuminating the seabed ahead. Already clearly visible in the distance is an island floating above the seabed and surrounded by huge air bubbles. The Fishman Island has arrived. Chapter 260 Come to the Fishman Island. Neptune. Although it is in the deep sea, the Fishman Island is not completely dark. The roots of Yangshuive run through the entire red line from top to bottom, and transport the sunlight from the top of the red line all the way to the deep sea. So even though the seabed is 10,000 miles below the sea surface, it is still directly below the red line, covered by a huge rocky continent, but the Fishman Island still shines brightly. So when the big ship covered in flames approached quickly, the Dragon Palace soldiers guarding around the Fishman Island immediately noticed. What is that? At the gate of Dragon Palace City, the soldiers guarding the entrance to the Fishman Island were stunned. Flames blazing deep beneath the sea. How could they have such bizarre dreams? What's even more bizarre is that they also vaguely saw a big ship looming in the blazing flames. However, as the huge flame got closer and closer, all the soldiers of Dragon Palace City couldn't help hypnosis themselves because they had hallucinations. Alert! Alert! Although I don't know what it is, it must be right to be vigilant. The soldiers of Dragon Palace City quickly picked up their weapons, moved the seawater and swam in that direction. They need to find out what it is. It's really a boat. A big ship wrapped in flames burning in the deep sea. What the hell is going on? The Murlocs who have lived in the deep sea since they were young said that they had never seen this scene before. Who are you? The Murlocs didn't dare to approach the flame at all, but shouted to the big ship from a distance across the sea. But no one answered at all. The moment they finished shouting, the Murlocs rolled their eyes and passed out foaming at the mouth. The solar boat went all the way and came directly to the gate of the Fishman Island. The remaining Dragon Palace soldiers guarding the gate also fainted immediately when the big ship approached. The flames covered the door, and then opened the door in an instant. The big ship smoothly entered the canal behind the gate. There is air inside the Fishman Island, and air bubbles are set at the gate to separate the sea water. So after entering the interior of the Fishman Island, Dulin dissipated the flames, and there was no need to continue to maintain them. It didn't take long to walk along the canal inside the gate and came to the port of this country. There are already many ships docked at the port. There are serious merchant ships, and there are also many pirate ships. But the most conspicuous thing is of course the pirate flag hanging on the pier of the port, the one with the skull flag painted with a beard like a crescent moon. After the opening of the Great Pirate Era, the Fishman Island has indeed ushered in a rather difficult time. The pirates swarming towards the New World came to the Fishman Island one after another. These unscrupulous guys naturally brought heavy suffering to the Fishman Island. However, this situation came to an abrupt end with the arrival of the Whitebeard pirates. Whitebeard lent his flag to the island, declaring it his protection. As a result, not many people in this sea dared to attack this island again. The Fishman Island thus ushered in peace. But this kind of tranquility is about to usher in a change today. A ship that entered the port without an entry permit naturally attracted the attention of the Fishman Island, not to mention that the soldiers stationed at the gate had all passed out at this time. A group of soldiers from Dragon Palace City was quickly heading towards the port at this time, and the target was of course the solar ship slowly entering the port. But before they arrived, the port was already boiling. After all, the emblem on the solar ship is too conspicuous, and there are so many people gathered in the port, of course many of them can recognize its origin at a glance. That's it. The Illuminati. It's the mark of the Illuminati. Has the Illuminati expanded towards the Fishman Island? It's a big trouble. This group of people is not easy to mess with. And they are also very repulsive to children. I just received a message from the Sabaody archipelago. The sun god is going to the Sabaody archipelago on a big ship. The ship. It can't be. This ship, right. The light will come. The sun god has come. These two news spread like crazy in the port, and spread rapidly towards other places of the Fishman Island. Is this the Fishman Island? The solar ship hadn't come to a complete stop yet, and Kisara had already flapped her wings of light and flew into the midair for the first time, and she looked around in amazement. 0. Ask for flowers. What you see is completely different from the scene above the sea. There are bubbles like the sky, and there are buildings made of coral and reefs everywhere. But what is more special is of course the residents living on this island. Both the fish were quite surprised. The only fly in the ointment is the frantic fleeing people at the port. It's not their fault either. After they heard the news that the Illuminati, and even the great sun god, had come to this island, it was really difficult for them to stay here any longer. Even if they dare not sail towards the gate of the Fishman Island immediately and prepare to leave the island, they will immediately flee deeper into the Fishman Island. 0. Dulin walked to the side of the ship and looked around a port that had become completely chaotic. It's really frustrating. This may be the disadvantage of gradually reaching the top. My own existence itself is already like the sun, so it doesn't matter if I watch it from a distance. But if you get close, just the afterglow unconsciously emitted is enough to burn everything around you. But it doesn't matter. Dulin never cared about other people's opinions. Let's go, have a good stroll. There is no need to rush to find the rulers of Dragon Palace City, they will come to them by themselves. Just as Dulin expected, not long after they arrived at the port of the Fishman Island, above the Fishman Island, inside another small bubble above the huge bubble, was the royal palace of the Fishman Island named Dragon Palace City among. What? The male mermaid with a huge stature and a thick brown beard on his chin was sweating instantly on his forehead. You mean, the Illuminati? Illuminati. In fact, he is in the Fishman Island and he also knows that it is an extremely terrifying organization. Not even Captain Whitebeard can do anything about them. A Dragon Palace soldier knelt in front of him with cold sweat on his face. Yes, Your Majesty, and the news from the port seems to be more than just the Illuminati. It is said that the god of the sun is also on that boat. What? Knife.